Welcome to an incredible update show. This is the kickoff of Smite's Year 10 update show 10.1, the Fire Giant update. I am Titan Dandy, and I'm joined here by two people that y'all should all recognize. We have Titan Ajax, Titan Clumsy. Welcome aboard.
Hey, yo.
Hey, what's going on, everyone?
We are incredibly excited to kick this off. I say this a lot, right? Y'all will hear me say we got a big update coming, and I've said that for a lot of updates, and they have been big. Comparatively speaking, this update's gigantic. You see, this isn't paper. A lot of times we have it would have killed me. It would have taken 100,000 trees, and we're better than that. So we're excited to get in and talk about all the incredible things we have. We have a battle pass, a new god, a crossover event. So many incredible things happening that I think the best way to get into it is just to get into it. So let's kick off by talking about something that's a little different now. This is Smite Year 10, not Season 10. This is Year 10 now, because we're changing the way that we address these kind of things. Ajax, if you want to get into it.
Yes, that's right. So we're calling this year Year 10, and that's because of a very special reason that we are going to have multiple seasons throughout the year. So they're going to be
like every other video game
throughout Year 10.
That's
each
popular,
with their own big gameplay updates, thematic changes, conquest changes, and more. The first season of the year is the Season of Monsters, which we're going to be kicking off today with 10.1. But we've been evaluating our release schedule. We've been talking to our community, looking at what we are excited about. And what that is more big game changes, more meta shifts more often throughout the year. So we won't have to wait all the way till mid-season and all the way till the new season. Now we're going to have Year 10, and we're going to have multiple seasons throughout, each with their own exciting changes.
Yeah, there's just so much that we want to do to celebrate 10 years of Smite. That's the big 1-0, you know? We're here.
Double digits.
Yeah, and so we think that this format is going to be great because we are going to aim to provide larger and more exciting meta-shifting updates on kind of a quarterly rundown, you know? Obviously, this is a huge change, and so we'll let y'all know more about this as we move through the year and as we continue to to make this into reality, but it's happening, and the Season of Monsters is the beginning.
It's certainly the best idea they've had.
Oh, yeah.
It's good marketing, and it's good to get people to come back to play new stuff.
Get some changes that are actually happening now. And the
good for content creation, good for everything.
Is a brand new Conquest map.
Hell yeah, we're doing it.
We're doing it.
That's right.
It's a little out of rotation. We wanted to move it up because, again, big 1-0.
Yeah.
And the map is incredible. I could sit here and talk about it all day, and we have enough changes to talk about it all day, but just talking isn't that enjoyable. let's get in and see the map as we talk about it. Yeah.
Well, you're going to get a theme from today. A lot of what is in this update is really honoring
It
Smite
looks pretty good, too.
So we've got this brand new map that is Greco-Roman themed. We've got Olympus, the Mountain of Olympus, facing off against the Beast's Lair, like a mythical beast's cavern on the Chaos side. And we draw a lot of inspiration on this map from our older maps, so the Season 2, 3, 4 map, or even the closed beta map. But what you'll see across this whole update and across the the God release and other things is that we're trying to really celebrate Smite and do things that are really fitting to the Smite games. There's lots of call-outs to old content, lots of old faces being brought back, a lot of exciting things across this map. And this map is just gorgeous, completely redone. What we're looking at over here is the solo side of the map. And who's that?
Who is that? Yeah, that's new. That's
Fuego.
Environment right there.
Bro, does he have a loading in animation from over here? That's sick.
So along with this new map, we're also going to have a brand new Fire Giant character model.
Wow.
That's true, because y'all have seen Sir
That's
come
sick.
to Smite, and we'll talk about that a little later, but, with him leaving the Fire Giant pit, we needed somebody scary to come and replace him. They found a good guy for the job.
Yeah, so we've got the first big beat of this map is the new Fire Giant. Important thing to note is that this Conquest map is going to be a living Conquest map, as it has been in our previous years. With each season, we're going to see big updates to the Conquest map.
That's cool.
We're going to see.
Yo, did he just bust through the wall too?
Changes to the map's layout. So that means we want to see
like a little lava
new
pit
pathing,
back there.
new jungle paths, new lane shapes. Each season, that's going to change. We're going to see map-wide environment art updates. So we're going to have new themes.
Little aesthetic things
seasons.
like that are so
have, changes across
clean,
the map
it's so good.
fit with those themes.
Yeah.
And we're also going to have new mechanics, new objectives, and balance changes for every season this year.
Yeah, which is entirely incredible. That is, with 4 season changes in year 10, that means that the map is going to get a breath of life for each of those new seasons 4 times this year, which is it's just mind-blowing, honestly. So what an incredible thing. So I mean, let's keep going. What else about this map is new? Because there are so many new things.
Well, before we get into any of the specifics, you can just see here, looking at the mini map, the shape,
True,
the geometry, the pathing, very different. One of our goals for this map was to make sure you just glance at the mini map and you go, "Whoa, this feels like a new map."
Yeah, of course.
You can see some really unique
There's a lot of jungle
changes,
too.
To shapes.
Very
and pathing.
windy.
If you look at any one specific part of the map, you look at the jungle, you see 2 speed buffs. Interesting. You look over at the duo lane, you see a lot of new shapes, new paths, a new contestable camp there. You look at solo lane, you see other changes like that. Fire Giant and Gold Fury now spawn in the center of their pits, allowing for a full 360
The
degree
center of the pit
combat
spawns
encounter,
is huge.
as opposed to being backed up against the wall.
Huge.
That gives you a lot more strategic angles to
Makes
defend and
objectives
attack
way more
from.
fun.
Yeah.
So a lot of changes just in general, as well as you can see, the completely brand new art set from the ground up, everything redone in a more serious, I'd say, little more realistic tone, really leaning into that ancient mythology and having a more architectured order side, as is paired with Mount Olympus, kind of getting into the more wild mythical beast side, which is kind of like the enemies of Olympus, led by Surtur and maybe some other
Good
characters
mythical
we'll learn about
morning
later.
coming in hot, dude, with their lawyers.
Like you mentioned, it's all kind of themed and tied together to that season of the monsters, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, just an incredible amount of changes. Like, let me be clear. This is a completely new map. This isn't Conquest with a coat of paint. This is, they have redone the map to make it brand new for year 10.
That
So
mid lane
there are
is
many
so
changes to
interesting.
talk
I'm
about
so
that,
excited to see
again,
how that
let's
plays
just
out.
dive in. Where do you want to start?
Let's see. So Fire Giant was the first change. He's got a completely new character model, new position. His abilities are remaining the same. We wanted to make sure we made that clear. That's just a very strong formula for Smite. It works really well. It's something we're open to looking into the future, but he's got the same attacks as players will be used to.
Got it.
There are some balance changes associated with him. An important thing to note is that his health scaling is increasing over time, so he's going to tank here in the late game.
Yeah.
We've had some discussion about the recent map where he's a little too easy to take in the late game, and he's also going to now take less damage from critical strikes, which is a very important thing for Hunter
It's
balance.
pretty strong there.
Nice.
Ooh, a little less burst on
Good
those-
changes,
those
good
hunters.
changes.
So, all right, so how about the pyro?
Yeah, we have a couple important mechanical changes to the Pyromancer. First of all, as you can see here, there is now no traditional mid harpies. They instead have a spawn point here at the Pyromancer spawn.
Got it.
So there are effectively some mid harpies in the early game.
Yeah.
But that actually gets repurposed into the Pyromancer pit, which is now moved out of the Fire Giant pit. So they're a little bit more separated. It's a little bit
like that.
harder to ward and just take both objectives at once.
Yeah.
That's also mirrored on the other side with the other mid-harpy camps that's going to turn into the oracles.
Got it.
So early game, instead of having more symmetrical mid harpies for the
Oh,
mid lane,
these are
you
mid-harpies
have
that turn
a
into
smaller
oracles.
mid harpy camp on
Interesting.
the Oracle side
Okay.
and a bigger mid harpy
Okay.
camp that's worth more golden experience on the
Mid-harpies
Pyromancer
and
side.
oracles,
So
mid-harpies
you don't
and
really
pyro.
want to just do that symmetrical clear anymore. You want to prioritize that Pyromancer side if you can clear that over your opponent, or you want to contest them at both of them and win those contests.
Yeah.
One of the main goals of this map was to make there be more opportunities for gaining your advantage in the early game and make those through unique objectives, not just direct snowballing.
Okay. I like that. Always good to have opportunities to get your team ahead, but based on merit of controlling a part of the map, you know, putting in that effort instead of just, oh, well, I have 2 more farms, so I'm going to slowly snowball.
I love the
part
aesthetic of
map.
this map,
So
man.
I love to see that kind of stuff.
Very excited
So-
to play
One
that mid
important
lane.
note as well, 'cause we
Very
talked about it a little bit
excited.
at the beginning, but
Yeah.
with all of these kind of new features showing up, one thing that's
Clumsy, you're
important
so
were
quiet.
old features that were going to be taken away. Because now starting with a whole new Conquest map,
Of course.
it's important that we don't just keep building on and on. We just keep adding features and mechanics that kind of just overbloat it, make it really hard to digest for each player, old and new, what exactly is going on. So for this Conquest map, we
Yeah.
are going to be removing several different objectives from the obelisks that we saw as a staple to this full year,
Yeah.
the Naga camps, the trebuchets, the enhanced buffs. But that doesn't mean we might not add anything back. Again, we want to just start with a strong foundation and build up from there. You're going to see a whole bunch of new stuff in this
I was
map.
about to say, yeah, with all the seasonal changes. So good to know. Some things are definitely going away. The obelisks have been around for a while, but I'll be interested to see some new things rotate in, especially as we keep moving through the famous year 10. So I guess, you know, we just walked Biden lane a little bit. Let's talk about those things floating in front of the towers. What were those? Look like shields.
Yeah, this is a new mechanic that's
Ajax's volume is like
all
perfect.
3 lanes on the tier 1 towers. These are tower bastions. So these are positioned in a place that even melee characters could take them, and ranged characters can take them relatively safely outside the tower radius.
Yeah.
And they are a different way for you to gain advantage in your lane. So if you're, you know, a lot of times in Smite Conquest, if you had cleared your jungle and you'd push your wave, your opponent would just kind of like wait you out or stand there or run away. So this just gives you another thing you can do to gain that advantage in the lane. And if you destroy those bastions, you're going to significantly weaken the tower in that lane.
Okay, got it. So if they're, you know, if it's early on and you don't really have the damage or the pressure to get in under that tower, you still have something that you
Those
can
will
work
be
on
interesting to see how they play out. It'll be interesting.
Right, and this will be
being rewarded for pushing your lane, you know,
providing the tower with additional damage mitigation. So those towers are going to be much harder to kill until you kill the bastions. So you don't want to kill those first.
Okay.
You also get a small gold reward when you do kill them. So
correct.
It's not like you're just, you know, doing that to weaken the towers. You're kind of incentivized to push that advantage. There you go,
50 gold. It's not nothing.
Utilize that one. For the 2 bastions, you can get, you know, the 100 gold. They don't respawn or anything, so it's a one-time bonus. Weakening the towers, giving you a bonus, letting you kind of express your skill in that.
I wonder how much it weakens the tower.
Very interesting about them is they can be hit by abilities, which was demonstrated here in the video. That is intended.
Like,
so
HP,
they're not
like
so much towers themselves. They're more
1600.
Like totems.
Maybe it's protection.
Right? So they can be hit by all sources of damage. Gives you a lot more ways to attack them, even from range. Your jungler can rotate through and help you clear them. Get a gold bonus for themselves and for you.
Yeah, they don't have like a little
just some
shield
new
lane
anymore. Dynamics.
That's awesome. And you know, you mentioned this a second ago. The totem. I hear the totem's getting some changes.
Yes, the totem has been changed as well. We're now just referring to it as the totem because it
looks like individual gold, not team gold. I can't imagine it's team gold.
The Hawaiian god Ku will be missed. So it's a very interesting, ornate skeletal totem now.
Very spooky.
Has similar features as before. As you attack it, it takes damage and the meter goes up, and whoever reaches the top claims it first. But important thing to note is that while you are in the area, it grants you a buff that gives you increased damage dealt to everything around you. To anything you deal, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So while you're in the area, you get a buff that makes you deal more damage to everyone. So what does that mean? A lot more high-risk, high-reward engagements between solo lane.
Yeah, I was about to say.
No longer can you just kind of ignore each other and take some splash damage while you're fighting that totem. You'll be able to really put the hurting on each other in that totem area.
If they're fighting it, you catch them from behind.
That'll make the solo lane so much more fun. Bonus damage on that, you know?
And the totem, as you can see, has been relocated into the lane. So you can even leverage that damage boost to help you clear wave or box your opponent. You can even you could stand in the totem range and intentionally not clear the totem to kind of leverage the damage boost and box them out.
It'll make it so much more dynamic.
Earlier, we're trying to add a lot more
to 1v1 in the
solo expression.
Add kill potential.
So mid lane has a completely new side harpy
so
rotation
much
and
more
new objectives to worry about. Solo lane has this very different change to totem. And then another change that's here in the solo lane, it also is mirrored over to the duo lane, is our new concept of stacking buffs, is what we're calling them.
Okay.
So there's a new contestable stacking buff here.
These are big.
That when you kill this, you can actually get this buff, and it can stack with any other jungle buff. Sorry, I'm going a little off script here. It was right here in front of me. We're flowing through the map. It's a natural flow. We're all right. But the important thing to note is, like, this isn't classic Conquest or Onslaught. You can't just stack every jungle buff in the game, but you can stack the stacking buffs.
The cooldown
traditional
buff
jungle buffs
and
will
then
still
the
work
gold
as is.
buff
You can only have one of them, but the 2 contestable ones, so either the one on the solo lane or the duo lane, can be stacked, and you can have both at the same time.
And so what does the stacking buff do? Is it just extend the duration of your buff, or what's going on there?
It's got a completely new effect. The one on the solo lane side is a cooldown reduction buff.
The silver buff.
Cooldown buff, man. It's a big one. It's important.
And obviously, there was a cooldown component on the previous blue buff. That's actually going to be shifted off onto the silver buff.
Right. So now solo laners aren't going to have that cooldown reduction for free. They're going to have to fight for it.
Although there is some other stuff going on later we're going to come back to. So if you're listening to this and you're upset about that cooldown reduction, you think it's just contestable, just give us a little bit, maybe a few hours, and we'll get to Caleb.
Give me a few hours. We'll be pleased. And there's also one here over on the duo lane. This one gives a shield when picked up and protections.
Got it. So kind of
yes, warriors are going to have all the CDR. Because keep in mind, warriors now have built-in cooldown just by picking a warrior.
The Gold Fury, which we're now positioned at, no major changes to them.
Okay.
They've still got the rotation, the multiple different Furies. The main change is the shape to the arena.
Yeah.
But we should go back to the Pyromancer now that that's spawned. That was one we had to delay briefly for the flow of the map.
All right, so what's going on with the Pyromancer then?
All right, so the Pyromancer has a brand new reward for defeating it, which, you know, the speed buff, that's nice. It felt good, but we wanted to spice it up a little bit. There was a lot of discussion about how can we make this a little bit more different, a little bit more unique.
Nice 8K hit.
And what we've got here now is the Runic Bomb, which can be picked up by anyone on the team who gets the last hit of the Pyromancer. It puts a new ability in your consumable slot.
Yeah, you can see it right there.
What?
That's crazy.
And it then gives you a ground target area effect detonating bomb that you can place, which does physical damage and applies a big knock-up to God, or deals a significant amount of damage to structures.
Nice!
And debuffs their attack speed. So you can use this as a way to push the siege.
Nice!
Yeah, you can use it.
Cool!
Right, it does a big damage and then it slows the attack.
That's cool!
The attack speed. So you can use this.
That's a fun gameplay mechanic.
Difficult
nice!
Pushes. You can leverage it in the early game to get a really strong push down one lane. Just a very new dynamic from the Pyromancer.
It seems like it. And correct me if I'm wrong too, but the towers and the Phoenixes have actually lost a little bit of health, haven't they?
Yeah, that's correct. Let's see. Where's my numbers here? So we did decrease the base max health of Tier 1 towers and Tier 2 towers and Phoenixes.
Okay. So, yeah, across the board. Right. Yeah, which I guess for the Tier 1s especially, they have that extra stat boost, so that makes sense. And it'll make sieging these a little easier. You can't turtle quite as hard.
Well, last season we did buff their damage output a good bit. We wanted to make them threatening, but we don't want them to just be sitting there too long through very long engagements.
Got it.
Sieging has always been something that a lot of players can struggle with.
Yeah.
So as part of, it's good tie-in to the Runic Bomb. We wanted to give more opportunities for ways to break through sieges and avoid stalemates.
We'll see.
The Enhanced Fire Giant being one of the most well-known ways to do that. That's going to still be on this map. But now the slightly decreased tower health, Tower Bastions mechanic, as well as the Runic Bomb be additional ways to help your siege.
Yeah.
The beach side of the map is lit.
I saw a sea monster out there. So
look how big that lane is.
Yeah. No swimming, I guess.
And those of you who remember the Season 2 map might remember the beach. A lot of people wanted the beach to come back. We have this amazing statue of like a Greek hero. Oh, we should have played the Capri skin for this part. Cue the music, yeah.
But yeah, cool. So all right, let's wander back into the jungle. So what are Unleashed jungle camps?
Whew, this is a big one.
This is the big one.
All right, we're diving in then.
This is probably the big jungle change.
Here, we talked about the lanes and a lot of the objectives, but how about jungling? Or how about your gameplay moment to moment? How is that going to change in the new map? We wanted to find an interesting mechanical change that's going to affect everyone in every role.
Yeah.
What you can now do
look at that.
is you can pull jungle camps anywhere you want.
Anywhere you
Asterisks.
want.
There are a few disclaimers. Yes, side effects may include. So they will de-aggro after a certain amount of time if you get too far away from them or don't attack them.
Yeah.
They can be re-aggroed. You can see the details on that in the patch notes. They also, you cannot pull enemy jungle camps. You can't run into the enemy side and pull all their camps back to your side.
So or the contestable ones as well.
Right, or the contestable ones. So only
your buffs
can you pull out of the location. But when pulled out of the location, you can use that to group camps up. You can use that to deliver buffs to your laners without them having to go places. It gives a lot of new, it gives what we've seen mostly in our playtesting, it gives junglers some really interesting ways to min-max their clear if you can pull camps really effectively and clear them all together. It gives supports some new roles, and then they can go pull buffs and deliver them to lanes.
That's crazy.
And the jungler can also kind of do that as well.
Also, very curious to see how the start of the game is going to start fleshing out because there's so many different.
This jungle change is the big.
And the
initial
big, spawn order of operations is going to be listed.
The gods who will be good junglers change, and
right?
the way that you get XP and when you spike,
like speed buff. We get to all these I guess, over time, but the start of the map is definitely going to change. And one of the ways that's going to change the most is now we can have different players have collaborative elements of pulling their camps together, clearing together, and then going to their lane or whatever order they find to be most efficient. So really excited to see people get into PTS and start trying to figure that puzzle out.
I think one of my favorite. I mean, there's so much too. There's so much nuance in the roaming jungle.
Of
camps
course,
and
yeah.
The, Unleashed ones.
No, they
one of
would
my favorite
not,
parts is,
bro.
like,
They have to move
as
slower.
a mid laner, I no longer have to like run to my red to the jungle trying to clear my red buff. They can't be like, hey, I cleared it. I'm sorry you didn't get here in time. They can now bring it towards me.
Yeah, or they can at least meet you halfway, you know?
I'll make some effort. You got to make some effort.
Which
like,
some
don't
junglers
tell
still
me.
won't. You know they won't.
Oh, no.
100%.
But you know, the good ones will be like, hey, it's by your tower. You can just go back and get it when you want. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So.
And there's a couple other specific rules to make sure that things stay balanced. So lane minions and jungle camps, unleashed jungle camps will ignore each other. You can't pull those into lanes to try to deny lanes or slow down lanes or help you clear towers or anything like that. Towers will attack them though, so you could use that if your jungle clear is especially not so good. But you will get a gold penalty for doing that, just like if you had a
roaming minion
last hit that you missed.
Also, we're seeing something.
Say, what's going on here? Are you being
I got ahead of
pursued?
myself a little bit when I said roaming because this is the other feature that's there. From the dead back harpy camp spawns, you can actually get roaming harpies that actually going to be moving around that camp to kind of give you a kind of a dynamic experience inside the jungle while those back harpies are down.
Oh, that's incredible. So you can literally just be roaming through on your clear and be like, oh, there's a harpy. I guess I'll just grab that while I'm here.
And there's another one.
Right, so experimenting with roaming camps is something we're really excited about. This is kind of the initial attempt at it, right? And we're something we can definitely play with as we go through.
Roaming camps are very interesting.
Always something we've discussed. So these roaming harpies will spawn from the back harpy camp, and they will path around that camp in a scripted path.
Plus,
so
there's
you
the
can
chest.
predict where they're going to be. You can pay attention to the
so
mini-map.
much
There
stuff.
is indicators on up to 3
It's
of them
so
can spawn,
different.
and the back harpy. So all of them can be spawned at once. You can actually sweep through and scoop up 6 harpies all at once if you plan it perfectly.
If you, there's, like you said, so much nuance to this. And one thing I want to double back to a little bit is, aren't the buff timers for those the like unleashed jungle camps? Isn't there some new rules about what those buff timers look like?
Yeah, good point. Since you can move them into other locations now, we wanted to add some more forgiving elements there. So
super helpful.
yeah, now buff camp. I mean, the TLDR is that buff camps will stay on the ground longer than they did before.
Okay.
Which everyone I know watching this show, everyone has been 1 foot away from the jungle buff before it goes away, right?
Like once a day.
So now it's going to be longer. That's going to happen less. But the important thing to note is that they will eventually relocate back to their spawn point if left there for too long.
Oh,
so.
interesting.
So this is an unleashed red buff camp that's been killed far away from the camp, and it's going to stay there for a small period of time, and then afterwards it'll actually relocate back to the normal red camp spawn. So there it
And
is.
still stay there for an even longer period of time. So it's a very
Interesting.
long time to pick that buff up. You're not
Okay.
gonna. You're
Okay.
generally not gonna miss it.
Very
entirely,
interesting.
Ever. You might have
So
to
you
go
can't
back
really
to the
miss a
location or
buff
something like that,
anymore.
but you're not gonna miss it.
Yeah, I mean, that's super handy because, like you said, you know, your jungler's like, hey, couldn't drag it out to you, dropped it in the area. You're like, cool, I'll go get it. You start an engage, you don't get back there right away. This really gives you that leniency to be like, all right, cool, engage is over. I'm gonna go step back and get my buff. So super cool to hear.
Right.
Whew, all right. Well, I mean, we got to keep going. We've talked about roaming camps. We've talked about stacking buffs. How about Cyclops? And anything? Cool? I hear we got some Cyclops.
Another
Find the
throwback.
chest.
Another throwback.
One
Find
of
the
my
chest.
favorites. I'm sure our jungler here has passed one or two of them. And
one
and someone probably
Yeah.
saw them.
Might have
People watching the
There we
show.
go.
So there are these treasure chests
How much gold do
hidden
they
in
get
the
for the
jungle.
question?
Notice they don't have mini-map icons.
True.
But they do have a few set spawn locations, and they can spawn throughout the jungle.
25,
When you
okay.
destroy one, you'll get a buffing area that gives you movement speed.
Huh.
So, and some gold.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, but movement speed's nice.
as you kill more of those, there might be a little surprise waiting for you.
What good timing.
I know, right?
Perfect.
So on the third one that you destroy, a Cyclops rogue will ambush you, who's also going for the gold.
so
will ambush you
cool.
and attack you out of the chest. And these are Cyclops characters that were, old characters that
Yeah.
used to be on the map a long time ago.
Not
We
that
wanted
much
to,
gold, but it does give you
like
that
I said,
nice
we tried to
movement
find
speed
some ways
buff,
to
which you
hide
can
some old
use as
Easter
you're
eggs
going to
some fun
gank
stuff
and stuff
from the
to get
early
the
days of
camps
Smite. So
faster
the
and whatnot.
Cyclops character will pop out of the chest and will chase you and fight you, and then therefore he'll be worth a little bit more than the normal one, and you can reposition that buffing area to be in a more convenient location.
Oh, interesting.
So we're treasure hunting.
I was about to say, yeah, it's literally a treasure hunt because they're hidden around the
So
map.
the
But that's
Cyclops
cool that
itself
got a
will
little
drop the buff,
content-
which means you
somebody
can
else's
actually
treasure
drop it
hunting
where you
alongside
want
you
it.
and, isn't happy that you're doing better than them.
I was gonna say the one last spin on this as well is that this is not just a conquest mode feature. The rogues are going to be appearing on multiple of the different game maps.
Now the other maps are smaller, so they're going to be easier to find, which is okay. We actually placed them in what we thought were pretty, obvious locations. Locations you're really likely to path by during a normal jungle rotation.
Yeah.
And in the other maps that are smaller, more open, they'll be very obvious, right? So they're essentially just a new contestable mechanic for those other maps. And in those other maps, it's also pretty interesting because that speed buff could be really valuable in those other maps because you have a lot more players in a lot closer area that can use it, right? So you can run into it more frequently. If you manage to, get it in arena, your whole team pretty much has that effect very often.
Yeah.
Whereas in Conquest, it's going to be used more by your support, your jungler who's rotating. Maybe someone's trying to get back to base.
There's a gank, just all kinds of,
Exactly. So it's a little bit more specific in its application.
This poor guy is trying to find a chest so hard.
It can be a very big team-wide effect.
That's super cool. Well, as the treasure hunt continues, we've talked about mid harpies and back harpies, but what about some of the buffs? Just in general, what changes have come to the buffs across the map beyond just their timers and being able to drag them around?
Let's see. So we do have a couple changes to buffs. The purple buff is no longer going to be have the effect that makes you immune or hit into minions and stuff like that.
Minion aggro components.
Yeah, so it's no longer going to have that. It is still going to have a dot damage that it applies to you as its special ability effect. It is now going to be more focused on being a hunter buff as well. So we've changed it back to the purple buff from the void buff. The mini-map icon is now a sword instead of a shield. And the buff has now is going to have 10% attack speed and increased magical basic attack damage and physical basic attack damage. So it is really more of a specific hunter buff.
That's a strong buff.
Similar visuals because it's still the purple.
That's a good buff.
Purple monster. And love it is a very different design, more designed for hunters.
Got it.
Especially with the green buff's existence nowadays.
Exactly.
Don't accidentally pick that one up.
Oh, let's see.
Will the Cyclops rogue be in this one?
This was the second one.
Was it? No, you have to take 3 on the same side.
Where are we right now? There, okay, right.
We've been invading a lot of them.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's the second one on
this side.
So it's based on the side. That's good to know, though.
Now it's 2 and 2.
We saw at the beginning, they're actually symmetrically opposite.
That's hilarious.
On each team. So that way, there's not one, you can actually kind of tell where the enemy's one is if you found yours, but also 2, it doesn't feel like a kind of a disadvantage that one is like.
It's the same purple buff from Arena. Okay, that's a strong buff.
Order and Chaos always will have the same number of them in the same spots.
Cool. Well, let's continue down the buff path. So what about red buff? Is that any changes to red buff?
Red buff is gonna be decreased health. That's an important one. So there's a lot of balance changes, as people will read in the patch notes. We're not gonna go over every single one line by line.
The buff was gonna decrease health. I was like, what?
The short explanation is that new map, different number of camps and spaced out in different places. So in general, we wanted to keep kind of the total golden experience pacing on this map feeling pretty similar to the way it was last year, but it's very different in its allocation across the map. So in order to balance that, there's small changes to the golden XP rewards of a lot of different jungle camps, as well as the lane minions, things like that. Because in general, things are a little bit more spread out, a little bit harder to get, actually. So things are generally worth a little bit more. And we've also done some very key buffs and nerfs to specific, damage outputs and health. So like one of the ones that is important here is the buff holder of the red buff getting decreased health. Help make sure mages can clear it without taking too much damage from that a special ability, which also we already nerfed that. We already nerfed that once, right? I don't think that's getting nerfed again.
I'm so confused at what he's trying to say.
When that red buff is at low health.
Yeah, that did hurt.
That's already been nerfed, but we're nerfing the total health of it a little bit more.
Got it. So with a lot of these buffs,
is he just saying that the red buff has less health?
Check the update notes.
Because he kept saying, I feel like he kept saying it in the way that like it reduces your health. I think he's trying to just say the red buff's easier to kill.
Buff camps is actually the speed buff, right? That definitely had a change as to where it was split into 2 camps. There's 2 speed buffs now, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so why 2 speed buffs instead of just the 1?
Well, more speed.
More speed. Hadn't thought about that. I'm sorry I asked.
I think one of the that's definitely going to be important is more speed.
Yeah,
but also
more speed.
Just putting on both sides of the map kind of now changes the onus for the assassin, the jungler to, well, not always assassin, right? The jungler to kind of choose which route they want to take, right? They can prioritize the left one or the right one first, and then kind of stack up and go for their other speed buff, or kind of change the buff time that you're going to get it And that way it's not always going to be deterministic that the jungler is going to be focusing one side of the map always because that happens to be where their speed buff is.
Got it.
Now it's going to be a little bit
I like the AMA pathing against the wall.
To read the enemy jungler, and you can now change your own play patterns to fit your own desires.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or even to match the role of the character you're playing. That makes sense. Because, you know,
Right.
it could be like, well, I'm playing somebody who's a little more, I'm playing an assassin, so I'd prefer to start
By
on this
God, the
side
hunt for this
early
chest
game,
is getting
use your
intense,
these
y'all.
camps. As to where if you're playing
Literally
somebody
intense.
more tankier, more of a warrior, you'd start on the other side because that gives you the chance to interfere with the. It's just I like that, a different ebb and flow.
You could do a rat.
Makes you unreadable, especially as we kick off through PTS in the beginning of the season, as people are learning the routes.
So this buff is no longer going to have a crowd control function on it, but it is going to be. We have another chest. Let's see.
There
it is.
Hey. Cyclops, Thief.
This is definitely the coolest looking Cyclops, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Not the only reason why we designed the mechanic in this way, but yeah,
Once
that
it
one's really
builds,
cool. So now you've got the speed buff location right.
We
by
did it.
Oh, okay.
And
so
that'll
you can
persist for a while. You can go back and use it anytime.
That's really cool. You can drag them to the location. That's awesome. So, man, we have talked about so much with this map. Obviously, there's a lot of numbers. There are a lot of things that have changed. And
There is a lot of numbers on those notes. We wanted to make sure we provided everything for documentation reasons and for people to analyze fully. But yeah, we're not going to talk about all that right now.
Yeah, it would take us. This would be a 7-hour event. We'd have to have a break and popcorn and it's just a whole thing. So if you want to see all of that, make sure to check out those update notes because
popcorn?
painstaking.
Go for some popcorn.
But painstaking detail, you will see
we'll
everything.
check
You
out
can
those
see
notes.
how the
Don't
lane
worry
minions
about
are
it.
scaling now every 3 minutes or whatever. Like all the information is there. But before we leave this map, is there anything else that y'all would like to highlight or anything else that you'd want to say?
Let's see, a couple more small changes. Green buff has been changed in its location. It's very close to mid lane now.
Yep, it's also no longer going to be freezing your ally buffs that they have on them. So you can see that's kind of a theme for a lot of these different jungle camps. We've lost the AI aggro component. We've lost the freezing component. We've lost the cooldown on blue, but that was shifted between the silver, and we've got the green buffs.
A lot of give and take.
A lot of give and take.
For various specific reasons. Also, we have the Tree Folk character holding the green buff now, too, which is very appropriate and a very cool character.
Tree Folk.
We also have the blue buff, as we called out a little bit earlier when we were talking about the solo lane. Blue buff is no longer going to give cooldown reduction, just mana.
Yeah.
So
gotta
that's
fight
going to
over
make
the
that contestable
cooldown.
buff especially valuable. It's going to make warrior builds have to consider their changes, and when we get to later in the patch, we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, it also has an aggro component so that when you do hit an enemy god, you also regen some of your mana. So it's kind of like a little spiced up a little bit.
Now, as y'all continue talking, one more thing I want to see as y'all put in the final notes is, like, can we see the fountains? I'm sure the fountains changed in this. I want to see the 2 fountains.
Oh, the
Have we not
bases.
been to the bases?
I don't think we have.
The bases are a huge environmental change. I'm glad you called them out. They're
That is
interior
cool.
spaces now.
You're in a building.
And they're high enough up that any flying god is not going to get in the way, which that's one of the reasons why
That's a
we picked
big
Ratatoskr
building.
as our guide to the map. Because it's also very lore fitting and because he has some of the best air control and we can really take our time and appreciate up there. But both bases have interior structures now. It feels so cool to enter into the enemy's base. It's so much intricate artistic detail. Yeah, the statues of Argus.
This map is aesthetically the best looking Smite map. It's not even
statues of our new frog friend.
It's cool. They did a good job with
Go
it.
wait for holiday and suddenly everything just like, wow.
Yeah,
yes,
I know, right?
Shout out to the DKO crew. They have a frog friend. We have really cool windows into the floor,
like
glass floors that you can see through.
Environment team absolutely killing it.
Always knocking it out of the park. I mean, again, this is an entirely new map. Yeah, let's rush over and see if we can sneak into the other side of the enemy base real quick. But
You won't be ending the game because you'll be too busy looking at the fountain.
We still have the base gates. Yeah, that's good to note.
But yeah, and I like how the base gates. I saw this earlier, but the base gates.
The portals
obviously
are
reflect
minion
the side of
spawners.
the map
Yeah, that's
they're
where the
on. That
minions coming
side,
from.
They're more built. They're established. They're regal. And on this side, they're a little more like big stone slabs that are just sliding
So
out
the
of the way.
interior of the chaos space is
Cool.
the mythical beast cave. As you can see that giant skull on the top, and then more
like
skulls and bones in here, and an amber fossilized floor, and some updates to the Chaos Titan here.
Yeah,
he was
Looking
very
kinda spicy.
regal and proper in his Tiamat base, and he's gone a little bit more feral and dark to match his
Looking
new
kind of
base.
spicy.
Yeah, that amber skull below
Looking
the
kind of like a
floor,
daddy and her. Damn, look at that.
Oh man.
Yeah, the bases, I'm glad we saved those for last because they're really like the, I mean, there's so much cool stuff on this map. The solo lane exterior space and dual lane exterior space, the lava fields and the beach are beautiful. the Order and Chaos space, though, probably my favorite part of the whole map. Like, gives you such a unique feel when you spawn into your base, when you leave it out into the jungle and out into your lane to fight, and when you're sieging. It's just gorgeous.
Even
like you said at the very beginning, kind of harkens back to like what season 0, like the oldest
closed beta was the only ones you could go inside.
Yeah,
it was back in closed beta. Which
I definitely got some of the nostalgia vibes when we first loaded.
Which a lot of people might have forgotten about too, but we had the classic Conquest event this year. So a little reminder, but overall, it just feels and looks really cool. We have new tower.
It's cool.
Which you might have noticed, these are completely new models.
Dang.
Man, just again, the amount of changes.
He's a cool one.
It's a book. It's a phone book. You're really going to have to sit there and read through it. So obviously, though, make sure to queue in, especially in PTS. Queue in and just walk around the map. Take it all in. Soak in the sights. You know, play Apollo and fly around the map as much as you can. Just super exciting stuff. Well, is there anything else before we exit the new Conquest?
One really important balance change. There's a couple other small things about respawn timers and base doors. We can you can read about those in the patch notes. And the initial timer we lengthened a little bit of the time at the beginning of the match, so people have time to prepare on the new map.
Cool.
But an really important thing to note is that Hand of the Gods consumable is going to be removed.
Is Gao. You're welcome.
This was causing some contention at the pro level about being mandatory and forcing very linear strategies.
You guys are welcome.
Required you to go certain places, certain times. It just really conflicted with a lot of our goals with Unleashed camps and opening up the starts and creating a lot more flexibility and more skill expression. So that item's gone.
Yeah. Bye-bye. And with Invader's Curse as well, we have like more mechanisms to make sure that you feel safer on your side of the map.
Okay. Right. Oh, cool.
They were like, you can pull all the camps together. Every single content creator was like, okay, so Hog is gone, right?
Assets hidden across the map. There's a lot of mythological details and callbacks to our community and to the game throughout the map. So really, going to be excited to see people explore that on their own. But
yeah, for those of you who have been here for the long ride, tweet at us, take screenshots and compare and show us all these secrets that you find, because it really is, this map is a testament to 10 years of an incredible game with an incredible community, and it's just the beginning of what we have to talk about today. So super excited for it, but unfortunately we gotta keep moving. There's
Yonder we wander, let's go baby.
Way more stuff to talk about, right? And a lot of stuff that's really exciting. So I mean, I'm excited to get into this next section.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, how about we move on to the next section then? We got some ranked stuff coming up. So what do we got in the world of ranked stuff we got to talk about?
Well, we have one really big rank change.
That's the console.
We have more rank changes, but one that's really big, and that is that all ranked modes are going to be full crossplay.
Full crossplay?
In year 10. Whoa. They're also going to be hard reset, which is very important. I think a lot of the friction in crossplay came from merging people of different skills, different play styles. Yeah. But with a hard reset, everyone starts at the same starting point, right? So from day one of 10-1 ranked, you can have console players and PC players playing together, playing against each other on every team.
That's crazy.
And we'll see who can rise to the top.
All the way, yeah.
Maybe some players who are used to being masters might have a harder time getting there in the new season. Maybe they will prove us wrong and the console players shall reign supreme.
Yeah.
Really, anything is possible.
That's just huge. So it's super exciting.
It's so important for the
important additional notes about that. I don't want to undermine how big of a change this is, right?
Yeah,
we know it's very
really
important. So we've got a lot of advocates on the Olympians squad, as well as from influencers and other pro players who are interested in this. It really expands the overall matchmaking pool of ranked by a huge amount.
Yeah,
that's so important.
The console ranked scene is large. So that gives more players the opportunity to play with the best of the best if they can get their MMR up high enough to play with them. Yeah. It also gives a larger casual pool of players to make sure those matches are as close as possible.
Yeah.
And as they play, the MMR system will shake things out and move people to their appropriate places. So a lot of big effects that can have. And this is just, I think, something we've been wanting for a while.
Yeah.
We've been wanting it internally, but we wanted to make sure we did it the right way.
It's a very important change, and it needed to happen.
To be the way that it all lined up.
It's good for the community and the game.
Kickoff. It's so many things. We're just going for it. We want to show more than anything that we're appreciative of the 10 years that we've had so far, and that it's only the beginning. It only gets bigger and bigger from here, really.
So then the other change is the God leaderboards. People have had a hard time acquiring those top-level borders. And we've done some tinkering with the formula and the system and the numbers and things like that. And it was difficult to get that to balance out for all the different gods, that some that get tons of play, some that get much less play, different modes. There was a lot of variability there. So we've kind of adjusted the system to be a lot more consistent. And that is just that based on your leaderboard position, that's what border you're going to get. So if you're the top 10, Thor player in the game, you're going to have a Master's border.
Okay.
No matter where your rank is at, no matter what your individual Thor MMR is, you're going to get that Master's border. And this is going to update dynamically. So if you're not playing that god for a while and people pass you, you're going to get bumped down. So you have to be at the top for the Masters, in that middle for the
borders
diamond,
have never really
leaderboard for platinum, and every player who just meets the requirement gets that gold border. So even if you can't make it on the leaderboard, you can still earn that gold border.
They've always been very funky.
You can show off your console or your conquest ranked border in normal conquest.
Got it.
So you can say, I'm a ranked player.
Yeah, I flex. I'm just here to practice and warm up.
Clumsy's genuine laugh at that, little cheeky impression I did, whatever. Yeah, so that's just something for everyone to go out and achieve.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to have a skill expression part of it, but we also wanted something that just everyone could go out and achieve.
Awesome. Good to hear it. Well, the only other thing in the ranked area is that there are obviously ranked quest rewards, and you can read all about those on the patch notes. But, if you're playing and winning games, and they're there on the bottom of the screen.
Berserker Rama skin 75, so, loading frame 150,
earn some cool
victory chest every 15,
also, as
50 free gems.
The ranked skin will be available immediately.
Yeah, right away. So if you hit the requirement to earn the ranked skin, which is the Berserker Rama skin, then you got it right away.
A little shout out to
you win 50 ranked games and you get 50 gems. That's a lot of gems. That's a lot of games for a little gem. But you know what? It's something.
Berserker Rama
it's something.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on into some normal game mode changes. How about it? So it looks like there's a lot of stuff, starting with the way the queue systems are working, it looks like.
Yeah, this is another big one. We are changing normal queues back to be non-timed queues. Ranked queues will remain timed queues. So what that means is that these queues will no longer have a specific time for how long they're going to be. You're just going to queue them, and they're going to count up.
This was actually a smart way to do this.
And you will need to accept
They were going back and forth on this for a long time. It was a smart way to do it.
In the current mode. A lot of people will be familiar with the system from some earlier years of Smite. The main advantages of this system, there's two. One is that multi-queue will get to return, which I know a lot of people are excited about. So you can queue for many modes at once and let the matchmaker sort it out where you want to go.
That's cool.
The other change that's really important about this is it gives us a lot more flexibility in what we can do with our matchmaking.
Yeah.
Time queues had a lot of advantages. I mean, they were nice because they're very consistent, but that also makes them very rigid. Time queues did not have a lot of flexibility for how we can match players together, how we want to do things. Time queues were when the queue pops, we make the best match we can.
Yep.
And if we make a bad match, we could say, well, we did our best. The time was up, and that's all we got. But with this type of matchmaking, we can really spend a lot more time, and we are going to spend a good bit of time this year making engineering level changes to that matchmaking system to continually.
They really wanted to do multi queues for
ongoing. This is something we're going to be adjusting.
Or they wanted to do like
something that. For the
these
first
type
week
of
10-1,
count up queues for everything, and we were like, listen, you can't count up queue rank. You can't do it.
And we're going to be very
Don't count up queue rank. Rank has to be a hard time.
Maybe timed queues come back at some point, or in some maybe there's a better combination of way things
we
to
saved
do
ranked.
That, but
we saved
really
ranked.
wanted in year 10 to actually be able.
A lot
to
of
make
casual
more
players like this multi-queue system.
Very rigid timed queue system really can't do that. It's just a linear list of top to bottom at the time. No way to extend a little bit of time.
And it makes more sense with like the quicker queue game modes.
You either wait the whole thing or you go.
Yeah.
So we have a lot more flexibility with the system. I'm really excited to see what we can do.
Awesome.
It just doesn't make sense with ranked. Ranked has to be a hard.
The map is huge. The ranked mode, the queues, so many things, and we're just at the beginning of the show. We still have so much to talk about, and I'm actually joined here now by a familiar face, Titan Clumsy, and another familiar face who just wasn't here a second ago, Titan Lermy. So welcome aboard. So, I mean, we have more stuff to talk about. Balance is not over yet, and we're going to dive right into it, starting with some brand new additions to the item world, shard relics. So, take it away.
Shard relics are crazy.
We keep saying there's so much going into this year.
They're crazy.
I'm not going to keep going the preamble of what we just went through, but items, there's so much going on in the world of the gameplay. What's going to be happening in Smite. One of the biggest new things coming up are, like you said, shard relics. So what are shard relics? You may have heard a similar term before, the vision shard, right? That's the kind of free relic shard that you got at the beginning.
Forget to throw a ward.
Yep, exactly. You kind of got that for safety. But now we're kind of expanding on that system. So we have what are called shard relics. And these are basically different alternatives to the vision shard. So there's going to be 4 new shard relics that you can now choose from at the start of the game. So 4 new ones, still have vision shard. That's still going to be one of the
They look legit, too.
And just like Vision Shard, you will now be able to have these from the beginning of the game and then upgrade them again at level 12.
Okay, that's cool.
And all of these shards are based off of the Season of Monsters, of course, which is what we're starting with. So you'll notice a little bit of a theme.
You thought your teammates were warding because they had a Vision Shard? No more warding. Warding's in the past,
They're really
okay?
fun. I love you.
Your teammates are never warding ever again.
Kind of almost, other than Vision Shard, like we said, the monster theme, they're also designed to have kind of mini relic power plays, right? They have a very similar goal in the sense that they're kind of 3-second buff debuff duration. And they have the same 120-second cooldowns. So we wanted to see what players can kind of do with one main relic that they can choose out, still just like normal. And then these little mini skill expression plays that you can do up to level 12. And then we're obviously definitely intentionally designed them to be replaceable later on. In fact, you'll see that there's a lot of similarities between these shard relics and maybe some of the stronger shards relics later on.
Okay, cool. I mean, do you want to go through them?
Let's get started.
Let's start off. Obviously, we know about Vision, so it's the same thing. But how about a Horn Shard? There's a new one.
Yep, so Horn Shard, this is going to be your non-ultimate ability cooldowns are going to be reduced every few ticks up to 3 seconds. So kind of like that meditation idea that you had on one of the upgrades from
so much cooldown
plays for your cooldowns being reduced. With the shard.
That's a horny shard, man.
Cool. All right, so next up, let's try Claw Shard. How about that?
Ooh, Claw's a really fun one. Claw is bonus power, depending on whether you're magical or physical. So this also has a very, very small scaling component.
And lifesteal.
Mostly to kind of differentiate this one from a later shard that we're going to be talking about. But this one is really, really fun for if you have those big burst moments and you want to make them even burstier. This is the shard to get.
Yep. Another component with it as well, because you've also got a little bit of lifesteal and ability lifesteal. You could also just use it to kind of sustain yourself back a little bit. If you just want to stay in lane for one more greedy play, right? You can go ahead and use that. Also, just as a
they're so interesting.
Them being
they only last a couple of seconds.
They're going to be in all game modes. This is not just a conquest thing.
Exactly.
All game
New
modes.
gameplay for all of the different game modes.
Nice. All right, well, let's keep going down. It looks like we have a Wing Shard in here.
Yeah, so Wing Shard, quite simple, movement speed, attack speed.
40%.
Kind of like mini heavily in a way. So you're probably going to be changing it later on.
Just to get involved.
Yeah, it's just the movement speed, attack speed. A lot more attack speed than movement speed because we know how valuable that can be.
Yeah.
Cool, and it's looking like the last of the new ones is a Carapace Shard.
Yes,
Shell.
now this one is really, really fun to get on support specifically because this is, you activate it, and then you have the next 3 seconds to attack an enemy with a basic attack. And whoever you hit, their protections get stolen away and given to you. So not only are you making someone weaker, but you're also getting stronger.
The Dive Shard, all right.
Yeah.
So it's the most unique one kind of out of the other ones, other than Vision Shard, but it's also kind of got that Sunder gameplay a little bit, right? So you're doing a little bit of an active component to get a buff for yourself.
Cool. Well, those are the brand new shards, which I'm really excited. Again, just another way for
they're all very quick.
We're seeing it so
they're
many
like literally
times.
3 seconds long.
Right? Because we're seeing
they're meant
so
to make
many
a
ways
quick
for
power
to
play.
Express themselves.
That's it.
That's what it's about.
Their play style. So I think that's really cool because, as somebody who plays a lot of Guardians, I'm going to be hopping in there like, all right, 120 seconds has passed or whatever, I can dive now.
Absolutely. And talking about the game modes thing, I think what's important there is that you can still get Vision Shard if you want to just be careful, ward your lane and stuff like that. But Vision Shard's also not that useful in the other game modes. Right?
Yeah,
if you're in Arena and you have Vision Shard, sure, you can go ahead and use it. You can finally get that one warded stat at the end of the game, right? But now with these other Shard relics, you can make a little bit more interesting power plays.
Exactly. And like you said, Vision Shard is still useful. If I know I'm playing against aggro in the jungle, well, I may still get Vision Shard.
All of those shards are like very good in their own way. They're all good.
So, all right. Next up, it looks like there are some items that are going away in this season.
Yeah, it's like let me get my water.
So many items are going away.
Get your S ready in chat because
because everybody wave goodbye.
It's been a long run. We've had a lot of new items and a lot of items, and with the beginning of the season, some items are seeing the curbs. So.
So
let's get into
a little bit of a preamble for this one.
All right.
Is the item store is changing quite heavily.
Oh yeah.
Quite heavily.
We've seen a lot of feedback. We're 10 years in. We've done a lot of things to the item store. This is going to be a pretty heavy shakeup. When we were evaluating how we wanted to do that shakeup, one of the important things is we didn't want to just constantly add new items. So sure, we've done some reworks and stuff in the past. Maybe we've even deleted a few items. But if we're going to just keep at it, if we want to keep going with Smite, these years keep going on, we're not going to just triple the item store. We understand how tough that can be for casual players as well, or even for invested players as we keep growing the passive text, as we tend to do. But, we'll get to that in a little bit as well. So one important thing is we wanted to reduce the kind of the item store bloat. What we kind of can call, and we're going to choose opportune places with, for many different reasons that we chose these items, but if you like some of the effects that are being removed, you might see them on other items. You might see them come back again.
Yeah.
It's not to say they're going to be permanently removed forever, but we wanted to start with a new baseline, just like we talked about for the Conquest map.
Yeah.
We're starting with a new foundation. We're doing that here.
Gotta refresh. Call it spring cleaning.
Item store is way different.
With so many new things, we figured we'll pull some stuff out, but I know we say it like every single show, and we mean it every single show.
Way different.
We're listening to y'all, so we're gonna make these changes. We're proud of them. We think they're gonna be awesome. You might not agree with all of them. Tell us the ones you love, because we love hearing it. Tell us the ones you don't love or that you miss, because y'all's feedback is what drives us towards making these game-changing, great changes. So. The word change is getting garbled. So let's get into the items being removed. Let's start it off. What are we losing?
So there are 2 entire item trees that are being removed: the Imperial Helmet tree and the Enchanted Buckler tree.
Got it.
We can get into that a little bit as well. In the patch notes as well, if you read alongside. We wanted to really reinforce tree identity, so we've relisted kind of the goals for each of the trees. But specifically talking about the removed items, I mean, we can go through each of these. We're talking about the Imperial Helmet tree, so Celestial Legion Helm. Unfortunately, that's going to be removed.
Bye-bye.
Jade Emperor's Crown, again, going along the entire tree, and Tyrannical Plate Helm, although you're going to see a little bit of a callback to that one again. I'm not sure Celestial Legion Helm or Jade Emperor's Crown if we have any favorites here, but some people
I have to be a little bit biased, The Jade Emperor can't build his crown anymore.
Oh,
that's true. That's true.
We might need to address that, yeah.
Man, we're just missing hats now. All right.
Shifter Shields, that's one that we always kind of toe the line on, what's strong and what's not. That one's going to be removed.
Yeah.
Celestial gone, Jade gone,
Runic
Tyrannical
Shield
gone,
also,
Shifter gone, Void gone.
We're going to see different ways of kind of
Runic gone, and Chile gone, Void gone, Stone of Power gone, bring up Hakate gone.
Again, you might see come back.
Keep it going, baby.
Anchile.
Rest in peace.
Anchile. I'm
Ansile,
going
it's fine.
Annihilated. It's one of those 3 or 4 or 5. That one's going to be removed. Void Stones, similar kind of vein as Void Shields.
Got it.
Some of these,
They're
we chose some of these items
baby.
that'll have a little passive effects that have kind of not really worked out for us. Some hybrid items, and we're going to get to that in a second, so I don't want to jump the gun too much.
In the arms
Stone of Fall,
of an angel.
Void Stone. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit. Ring of Hakate. That's going to be, I know it's kind of one of the more newer ones you could say, but whether it's Bancroft or Glyphs, we've kind of
Book
seen
of the Dead, Stone Cutting Sword, Blackthorn Hammer, the Sledge, Bulwark of Hope.
Book of the Dead. That one's actually going to be removed. Stone Cutting Sword. I think this was one that was a little bit, iffy. I know some people really liked it. Its effects, honestly, are they going to be kind of penetration based, so it can be you can get that kind of option elsewhere.
Yeah.
Again,
I'm telling you, man.
Reintroduce or add new items to flesh out the stores in more interesting ways. So I want to readdress that point again.
Yeah.
I told you the item things were crazy. I wasn't lying to you.
Yeah.
The sledge. Now that one was a tough one because we still love the idea of the sledge. Right?
By the sledge.
I know we're gonna, F's in chat for the sledge, but
true.
Bulwark of Hope is going to be removed. Hide of the Urchin.
Burn it all
this one's
down.
Interesting as well because Hide of the Urchin.
Hide of the Urchin, Witchblade, Hide of the Nemean Lion, Icky in Shadows. Bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
Normal conquest game.
And if you're like playing any arena and you're some sort of tankier character and you didn't grow this, you're objectively making the wrong decision. That's not really the most fun one.
Yeah.
The whole item store is new, baby.
Fun gameplay. Witchblade, that one's going to be removed. Hide of the Nemean Lion in the 10th iteration of it also being removed.
Have no fear. Some of these like item effects and stuff that you're used to are getting thrown onto other things. The concept of these items is not disappearing for forever. Have no fear.
And also alongside of these, so that's the last of the tier 3 items.
Yeah.
Alongside those, there's going to be many tier 2 items that have been removed that are kind of connected to these tier 3 that
things are being condensed in the store.
That may all sound very scary. Like that's like half the items.
That's a lot of items.
That's a lot of items.
We were joking about it. That's a lot.
Like 20 plus tier 2s and 1s.
But again, remember, we've got some more stuff to talk about here in that new items are coming, changes to old items are coming as well. So, it's not going to feel so empty. Don't worry.
Yep.
We got you.
Yeah, I think we're kind of getting right into it. So it's going to be the first category because we kind of broke this down into categories.
Yeah.
Hybrid items. We talked about that a little bit. We talked about the shields. We talked about the hammers. We talked about the stones and the crowns a little bit. One big goal that's going to be going into this, year 10 season.
This is very big. Listen closely to this one.
Is the idea of these hybrid items. Hybrid items have historically always kind of been problem points.
Yeah.
Whether they're the tier 2 versions from before or the current tier 3s, where they have a mix between power, offensive stats, and defensive stats.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what makes them hybrid items. And they were either priced or statted accordingly to really purchase them kind of early on into the games. But that also made them really, really tough to balance, honestly, because that's what this is all about. You tend to see this in the solo lane if you're going to be talking about Conquest or for Warriors and Guardians. But with that design space, we found it to be very difficult to find when they're going to be healthy, when they're not going to be healthy. And I think a lot of you guys in chat and home playing Smite, you know which kinds of items we're talking about. They were always really tough, whether it's the Glad Shields, whether it's the stones against the crowns. So now we're going to be having to choose. Now you're going to have to be choosing between power on these hybrid items because they're no longer any hybrid items. You could just say they're basically removed. It's going to be defensive or offensive options.
Hybrid
you're
items?
no longer going to have power and protections on the same item anymore. That's just not happening.
That's
no
huge.
power, no protections on the same items
we have so
anymore.
many changes. Yeah, let's start talking about individual
Such
cases.
a good decision.
You want to go into
such a good decision.
Yeah, let's start this. Actually, let's go a little bit more
good
overarching here for a second. So because power is not sharing protections anymore.
Oh yeah, there's an interesting note here too.
A lot of switch ups that can happen. So if you're thinking the shields, the stones, they can be bought by any class.
Right.
Any class, physical or magical. So you could have Glad Shield Guardians. You could have
That's a really good point.
stone items on your warriors. It could be any of them. So that's the first very important thing that we should talk about here is that your build potential is opened much wider.
Yeah, a lot of
They removed a lot of items, and yet somehow there's
absolutely.
basically
So the
more
first one
items to
being,
buy for a
Stone of
lot of
Binding.
people.
We talked about the different hybrid items. We talked about, this one specifically was the last tier 2. Again, another design space that is a little bit, I know people almost ask for tier 2s to come back. It's not an easy place to go, especially like we talked about for hybrid items. You have to price them accordingly if they're either hyper efficient or just not bought at all. So Stone of Binding is going to be brought into a tier 3. It's going to be building off of Sage's Stone. And Druid Stone and Sage's Stone are going to be getting a little bit of a rework to their stats. So for Stone of Binding, it's not going to be getting a massively different passive. It's effectively still the same thing. It's just going to be scaling with your per level.
Got it. And
just a little bump.
Yeah, as we continue,
Stone
we'll
of
be the broken
Binding.
record here and say
It's a
there are
tier 3
lot of
now. Look at
numbers
that.
with this new season. I know that the update notes are terrifying because you could like unlock your mouse's scroll wheel, flick it down, and then go make a pizza before it would finish getting to the bottom. But like, if you want the numbers, they are all there. You can follow along with us and get the numbers because they'll be on the bottom of the screen.
As we're gonna start getting into the new items, I'll let you know right now.
We don't want. We wouldn't want to be here till we're
When you
50,
think one item's OP,
just going to be the broken
wait for the
record
next
there for a
one,
second.
and
But
then
yeah,
wait for the next
let's
one,
keep
and
moving
then
on.
wait
We
for
got
the next
some
one,
shields
and then
to
wait for the
talk
next
about
one.
next in the
There's
hybrid
so
realm,
much
hybrid realm.
cool,
So,
good,
well, shields, yeah.
disgustingly
let's
strong
start talking
stuff,
about them. I guess,
and that's what
best
makes it
place to
balanced.
Start would be which one do you want to
So,
start?
So Gladiator Shield, I think we're going we're skipping a little bit, but Gladiator Shield's the one that's really,
Okay.
been a problem point again.
That's fair.
Yeah,
That's fair.
'cause
So
there's tier 1s and 2s as well, but we're going to get the T3s.
yeah, the important thing to talk about here is Gladiator Shield. So this is basically the same. It's getting a little bit of a caveat here because again, we're opening this up to a whole new realm of Smite characters being able to purchase
Gladiator
Shield.
Shield
So one thing that we have
Guardians.
added to this is the ability to any consecutive hits that you do with this are going to have decreased damage. So your characters like your King Arthurs, your spammy characters, like the first thing that pops into my mind when I think about Glad Shield and a Guardian is Artio.
True.
You will be able to do a lot of spamming here, but again, remember, every consecutive hit that you're doing with this is going down quite a bit.
Yeah. All right.
Yep. And so that clause there, the subsequent damage reduction, you may have seen that before with Soul Reaver. You also will be seeing this added to several other items as well, like the Crusher and the Bluestone Tree. It's the same kind of idea.
Glad Shield
Glad
passive.
Shield. It's just been hyper efficient for some of the
But
characters
you no
with
longer
multiple
get
abilities,
100% efficiency every
kind of
time.
leaning to be a little bit unfair. But going back a step now, I kind of threw you guys for a loop. We did that one first. I apologize, that's on me. But we have obviously the round shield and tower shield are going to be reworked their stats.
Yeah.
Berserker shield being the other shield here.
Yeah.
That's going to be getting a small shift as well. But the important thing here is it's no longer to be class restricted.
Yeah.
Because I think hunters as well were
Not
restricted
able to
away
buy
from
this,
that one.
Yeah. But
Berserker
and now,
Shield is
with
good.
Again, the big thing here is less
with
about the
thick
passive.
stats.
It did get a little bit of a change. Glad Shield, that one's probably more important than the Berserker Shield. But the fact that they no longer have power, that's what's really going to be important here.
Yeah.
Because if you're buying Glad Shield or Berserker Shield for its power and hybrid stats in current Season 9, now you have to make a really big choice.
thick
You have
shield.
to choose between the passive and the
It's
protections,
cool.
and, the utility stats it can give you, or an actual power item.
Yeah.
So I feel like we revisit this 3 times. But the most important part is if you want to build hybrid, if you want to be both damaging offensive and defensive in your stats.
Yeah.
You now need to get a defensive item, which this is classified as now, and an offensive item.
Exactly.
Which, you know, I like seeing before in some of the games where there's in the SPL, we started seeing some chalks with Transcendence, right? That's the kind of gameplay that we're talking about.
Okay.
Is you get an offensive item, it doesn't have to be Transcendence, but it could be whatever.
Solo
you
lane. Do I buy a defensive item first? Do I buy my offense item first and then go defense? Or offense and defense?
With the shields.
It's
going
actually
into the next
fun.
category of items, same category, another tree.
Yeah, another tree.
Which is the hammers.
Ooh, boy. I love the hammers so much.
The hammers?
Specifically this one.
Yeah, so Frostbound Hammer is getting a little bit of a change
HP.
because again, it does have to do with that hybrid playstyle. This one will actually have power, but again, to kind of go back to our point, items can have power and health, just not power and prots. Those two things gotta be staying separate here. So this has power and health, and then MP5 and HP5, of course, and you'll see that kind of theme throughout the hammer tree. But we've also made a nice change to the passive
This
here.
one's passive. It's a little bit different than the other
a little bit different.
Just a smidge.
So how this works now is instead of getting that slow effect on every single auto that you're doing, you're going to get a bigger slow effect. And it also will happen in an AoE.
Yeah.
But it's got an internal cooldown. So it can't happen too often, but when it does happen, then you've got the opportunity to
AoE
go crazy.
slow. Okay.
Yep, so we're looking at the hybrid items. We wanted to make those stat shifts, and we said, you know, Frostbound's kind of one that's not been as fun. You might see another item come in a little bit later on. Took this opportunity, and similar
That's
we're
hot,
here with Runeforge,
ironically.
the other hammer. Again, it's got the power, no protection like that. It has a little bit of health, the HP5 and MP5. But its passive effect is going to be different. So it's still playing with the hard CC.
Have no fear, Wingblade is also
But now it's actually
AoE now
creating a
too. You're
field
gonna be
on
okay.
hard CC that increases the damage enemies inside that field take from anyone on your team.
This effect is so much fun
crazy.
too on characters like Tyr, on people that can really hold you still in this Runeforge proc. You're going to be having a lot of fun because that's really the whole goal with this item is you want to pick a character or a team comp that can really keep those people in the area
Ruin
so you can
symbol.
do that extra damage to them.
Enemies
because
in
if
that
they're
symbol
stuck
take
in there,
10% more
they're not
damage.
having a
Okay.
fun.
Yeah, they're hurt.
They're going to be in pain.
And to revisit
Alright.
the goals again from the beginning, we wanted to remove and replace a lot and rework a lot of the items that were a little bit more passive, a little bit more boring, you could say, and create these new, more active gameplay moments. That's the goal
Gilga
for
has
Large, is
entered the
rework
chat.
items
He's
and for
loving
new
it. Yeah, so
passives
is
coming in.
Shiva.
Yeah,
Exactly.
especially when you see the effects on the ground and things like that. You'll have that clear go button of, okay, I see the actual visual that this has happened. Now I know that we should fight right now.
Yeah, there's a circle. I want to fight in that circle.
Fight in the circle.
You'll notice we winced when the word boring came
Are
out. It's 'cause
hammers
as game
restricted?
designers,
I do
that
believe
word
hammers
scares
have
us 'cause
physical
you
power
just don't
on
want your
them,
stuff
so
to
they're
be boring.
physical
So
plastic.
if you
Well,
say
it's
that word
either boring or
boring,
too complicated, right? So-
yeah, right. So like we want everything to be fun, but it's just funny, you know. It's like a thing you don't even think about. You're like, if it's boring. So anyway, all right. So there's one more item here for the hybrid.
This is more of a shift. So with the tree changes from before, Katakea's shield didn't have a home. It's now going to be brought into.
It's a
the hammer tree. So
club!
it's now going to be Katakea's club.
It's a club.
You use it to
Look at
bonk. Yeah.
The stats are going to be shifted.
Everybody
but the passive is
welcome
unchanged.
Katakeas
Cool.
to
So
the
yeah, it's just a new tree, a new little
club.
home. So that does it for hybrid. But now we're into a kind of a hot ticket area. How about some
Get it?
anti-heal?
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Some
Ooh.
anti-heal, some no healthy stuff.
This is a lot.
Second
You guys
category
probably
of
just- you
items,
probably
the
don't get
anti-items.
it.
Yeah.
You know, there's been multiple ways of addressing these, and I'm not going to go. I'm not going to have a massive preamble on every single one of them. Basically, we wanted to be more
here's
fun.
the
How about that?
anti-heal
How about that?
change
One
I
thing
told you
more fun.
about.
Anti-heal, it feels more like a stat. And
Additional
now each one of these anti-heal
passives.
items is going to be getting an actual passive. With that in mind, because you were just basically adding power and we're not doing like massive rework shifts like we were for the other items, they're likely going to be either getting stat shifts or nerfs in other ways to make up for the fact that they're going to just be getting a
The
new
Divine
gameplay
Ruin
effect.
one
So
will make
mostly it's increased
do a
costs
double
to make,
take
to make
if
them
they
more in
kept
line.
it.
So the first one,
same.
Divine Ruin. So again, a little bit of a cost increase and a whole new passive. The passive is your next successful damage ability actually triggers a chain lightning effect.
It's got oboe on it.
Cooldown, so kind of like a magical Odysseus
And the
spell
oboe
effect.
applies
So internal
anti-heal.
cooldown,
Yeah.
so you've got to have to play around.
You gotta wait
And
for
the
it.
best part about this is that lightning applies Divine Ruin.
Yeah.
So for those characters who had a bit of a tougher time applying it, thinking like you're Noxus or you're
That's a good
Scylla, if
item.
you hit one person and they're close to other people, they are also getting Divine Ruined.
Yep. So
Nice.
it's pretty interesting passive because it helps the AoE mages who are already doing well with the AoE kind of spread that around, or it helps the mages that don't have good AoE kind of
AoE,
actually
yeah.
splash into that cleave damage.
It's
Yeah.
once every
Nice,
20
awesome.
seconds.
So it looks like next up we have Brawler's Beat Stick as well.
Yeah.
Oh, this
And
one's
it's
fun
more
too.
expensive.
So
but it's
Brawler's
sick.
Speed Stick is now getting an additional passive.
This one's
like
really
we
cool,
said.
too.
And so how this works is if you are near an enemy, so you participate in the killer assist when they die, they leave behind this glowing red field where if you're inside it, you get increased power.
That's just cool.
Yeah. So again, staying in the circle. Stand in circles.
Yeah.
Bonus power for you and your team.
Yeah, if it's not your red circle, maybe not so much, but a lot of fighting in circles is going to happen. So it's kind of like a draw circle around the important fight area. So cool. So we keep going. Toxic Blade getting some changes as well.
Toxic Blade, historically an item that's honestly pretty decent, just with an effect that was kind of hit or miss. You know, anti-heal is good, but you can get anti-heal in other ways. But now it's getting something else with it too, right? So its costs are going to be increased, its stats are going to be decreased quite a bit, especially with the attack speed. But that's because we were talking about items that were removed. This one's kind of getting that Igval passive back a little bit.
Got it.
It's not quite the same. Your enemy's hit will still have the basic attack healing reduction, or so basic attacks will still provide the healing reduction as normal.
Yeah.
But you're also going to be kind of reducing their attack speed and gaining it for yourself. Like
Exactly.
a little bit of
40% attack speed shift on the little Toxic Blade.
Pestilence next on the docket.
Now this one is going to be a little bit different from the others in that it doesn't have really that much of a flashy effect, right? This is more so your one-stop shop for all anti-heal. And one really important thing to talk about is that Pestilence and Contagion have kind of been interchangeable for a long time, right?
Yep.
Got it.
So we're trying to give these two items a bit of unique identity for themselves, and that's particularly what Pestilence is going to be good at, is if you need a lot of anti-heal.
Pestilence is the biggest anti-heal item in the game now.
This is the item that you want to go for because it now applies even more anti-heal. When you get hit, you are applying additional anti-heal to the people that hit you.
Yep, and while it's not the most flashy gameplay gimmick, it also kind of requires you to do something a little bit more active. Or, it's got a gameplay purpose of, it's when you get hit, they're getting more anti-heal. You want to kind of position yourself in ways where you're actually causing them to hit you more.
Exactly.
Or if they're choosing to hit you, they're getting a bigger penalty for it.
Yeah, if you're right up in their face and they're hitting you just because you're the first thing in front of them, then they're suffering for it. It's a positioning game.
Yep.
So cool. Well, I think that's the last one on the anti-heal docket.
Yeah, we've got some Contagion too.
We talked about Contagion, but we also have it has a new passive as well.
That's true. It does.
Like Lemmy mentioned, though,
the Contagion passive is hilarious.
So
by
if
the
you
way,
do buy both, the auras are not going to be stacking.
Exactly.
That's
hilarious.
The same.
It's been
But the new passive for Contagion is going to be when you're hit by hard crowd control. So now you're on the receiving end, unlike Runeforge where you're dealing hard crowd control. The enemy will actually receive like a ticking aura that's going to be hitting their allies.
They get a mystical mail on them that procs on their allies.
Debuff that's going to be hurting their own allies.
It's
kind of
so
like
funny.
they're the source of your mystical mail almost.
Yeah,
They've got the Contagion.
It's
gimmick.
so troll, dude.
Contagion. Okay. I'm glad I didn't jump over that then. That's cool. That's kind of cool, actually, yeah. They start to poke you and you're like, but are you really? You're poking yourself. So, all right. So remember what I said a second ago? Yeah, now we're there. So we still have more reworked items, though, more things that are changing.
Yep.
So moving into some of those, what's happening with Winged Blade? It's getting some changes.
Ooh, this one is really, really
Winged
fun.
Blade's
So
getting OP
as you
is
see,
what
we have
it's
a lot
getting,
of new
dude.
effects coming to the various reworked items. But Winged Blade is one of those that in this particular tree, anti-slow is still very strong. True. However, with a lot of these items getting stronger slows, we wanted to be sure that the counter option was really good as well. So Winged Blade now is going to pulse out in an AoE when you get hit by a slow.
Cool.
So you and anyone in that AoE are then immune to slows and get
Winged
sped
Blade
up.
is so sick.
Easy peasy.
So sick now.
Yeah, team use case there.
Yeah,
So
nice.
yeah, this is a new category of like, it's not the anti-heal.
Yeah, we're out of
It's not the
anti-heal
hybrid
now.
items.
No
it's just
anti-heal.
fun new
Yeah.
reworks for effects that might have been a little bit too linear before.
It's gonna be so
things that
cool.
we're trying to bring some life into.
Where are the mage
moving
items?
Next on to Gem of
Relax.
Isolation.
Another one of your favorite
Relax.
items.
Oh, yes.
Go ahead.
I
What's
love
this
this
There's
one?
a
one.
lot
So
of items
this
to
is very
come.
similar to Frostbound Hammer in that this is no longer the constant apply, but it is the stronger application, but with an internal cooldown of it doesn't happen
it.
all the time, but when it does, it's pretty good.
Yeah, when you're getting it off, you're really going for it.
30% slower.
Cool. So how about Spectral Armor?
Big
What's going
slow.
on there?
Yeah, so
Spectral.
Spectral Armor. It's kind of like the anti-heal items, but it's got it's a counteracting effect for something that
Let's
they're
go,
doing, right? So
baby.
instead, you're still going to be getting the
I
the
spoiled
reduced
this
bonus
one the
damage from
other
physical
day.
crits. But now, when you're hit by a critical strike, you and your allies will actually take even less bonus damage from further critical strikes, and that effect will stack.
Another cool fun
Aura
change.
crit
It also helps
protection.
mitigate having to purchase multiple spectral armors for one team.
Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
provide
Yep.
at least a mini version of that effect for allies that are nearby.
Yeah,
So if you're positioning right in the team fight with this spectral armor, everybody's getting that
Spectral
anti-crit
armor
effect.
is
So you really
legit.
gotta watch where you're standing, but it's a really fun balance to play as a tank character where you want to stay near your allies, but you don't want to stand too near that they're getting hit, but you also have to stand close enough to the enemies where they're hitting you and they're critting you. It's it's really fun to be positioning as a tank.
And don't forget the
Season
circles.
10.
Yeah. So there's the
So we got
circles, there's
circles.
the allies. So
Lots of stuff.
so far the year of watch where you're standing. So next up we have looks like some stat changes. These are going to be primarily stat based, starting with Demon Blade.
Yeah, so this is a little bit more similar to the Cadeas Club change, where it's kind of like based on the items the trees that have been removed. These items needed to find new homes in a way, or they even restatted. So Shadow Steel Shuriken was removed. We didn't want to just we found a new design space for Wind Demon. It is now going to be called Demon Blade, and it's going to be on the short sword tree.
Yep. I mean, you can't really build a shuriken out of a sword.
Right.
So.
Exactly. It didn't make sense for it to be the previous name in art.
Listen, if one of the points is just a lot longer than the others, it's kind of it's a really bad handle.
I mean, it's got really sick new art too.
It does.
I'm excited to be using that. It's got an edgy name too. So
some of these the
nice.
stats might change, but the passives for all of these should be unchanged. So it's
it.
mostly kind of just reorganization of these items.
Yeah, specifically for Demon Blade though, it did receive a bit of a nerf in that it no longer provides movement speed on the passive, but everything else is exactly the same.
Got it. And worth noting that we do have cool new art. If some of it happens to be a little different in PTS or in game, that's because some of it's still getting a brush up here and there because we have really talented artists that like their stuff to look as amazing as possible. So
and it does look good.
Yeah, a lot of these are finished, but if you happen to be like, that looks a little different than I remember, then good on you for remembering.
I wonder if we're even like
halfway
through the patch notes right now.
They're absolute artists.
Our goats.
So truly goats. So next up, Breastplate of Regrowth, which was formerly a shield, wasn't it?
Yeah, throwback to that. This is now over in the breastplate tree, so you're building it from silver breastplate. Does the exact same thing. It's just in the breastplate tree now. And
you can see how they're kind of organizing the items into like more condensed spaces, so it's easier to like find them for new players, which is really smart.
Cool one.
That's cool. Yeah.
We were like debating which way to go. Then we heard this like terminology, and we're like, yeah, let's just roll with it.
Let's just roll.
Lotus
the
Crown,
name is good enough.
Helmetry, all that business, that's all gone. It's now going to be moved to the Ancient Blade tree, building off of Adventurer's Blade, and it is now a sick sickle.
It's so cool.
It is a cool sickle, to be fair.
You know, Crown's nice,
but you can have a sickle.
You can have a sickle. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Super cool. And yeah, again, the art is just, I love seeing all this new art. It brings life into some of these. I mean, these are new items. Some of them are very similar to old items, but it makes it really feel new when you get that new art for it.
Sickle.
You see it in the tree, it's like, I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, you're like,
oh wait, I know that.
Need me some of them stats. All right, so next up, Cleric's Cloak coming in. This looks like a tier 2, I believe.
Yeah, so this one's going to be really interesting. So Cleric's Cloak, that entire kind of tier 2 path, that's going to be changing because we're going to actually be removing the health and adding cooldown reduction as a primary stat for that tree. So in order to do that, Cleric's Cloak needed stat rework. It's getting a little bit more protections, but the health is removed for that cooldown reduction, and that's also going to be leading to the tier 3 item of Magi's Cloak. Magi's Cloak is going to be getting the increased protections as well, but removing the whole bunch of that health and adding cooldown reduction instead. And of course, the glyphs are also going to be equally affected.
Yeah, it'll grow up into those tier 4, I guess you'd call it, the glyphs.
30 protection,
again, kind of reinforcing our trade entities and spicing
things
up, making sure that if you want stats
it makes
in mind
it
that you kind of want to go for,
a more enticing item probably for junglers.
It looks like we have one last little kind of a whole tree of stat changes here, moving from the Morning Star, which is a tier 1, up to the Hydra's Star, and then all the way to Hydra's Lament.
Yep, similar as before. That tree was kind of an identity, was mana based, while MP5 is kind of there. The Hydra's Star, like that. There's already MP5 kind of with the Hydra's Lament tree a little bit. So we're just actually changing that stat from MP5 to mana.
Yep, it has a lot more synergy now with the Transcendence tree just in general. So, you know, if you do want to buy Hydras and Transcendence, it's a little bit better together now.
Yeah, they got a pairing. All right, so
a bit more synergy.
We've talked a lot of rework. We've talked a lot of deleting. This part, you can see how excited they got. This part
to the new
is really exciting. We got new items, not reworked with pretty new art, not brand
still pretty new art though.
Items. I mean, no, it is still pretty new art, but like brand new everything. So we're gonna dive right in with the very first new item, the Cyclopean Ring.
So
exactly the same.
All right, I'll take this one.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Go for it.
It gives me a little bit of time for that tiny clumsy preamble. Which is again, some of these there were items that were removed. Some of these some of those were removed for specific reasons and allowed us to bring new design spaces into them. So Hekate was removed. Cyclopean Ring enters the field. And this is a new ADC ring, obviously, being building off of the Emerald Ring and Enchanted Ring tree. It's actually going to have a new stat of cooldown reduction. Again, we wanted to find new ways of. Okay, stat itself isn't new, but the stat for that tree is new, right? It's like they didn't have ADC mages didn't really have the option for cooldown reduction before. Now they have a little splash of that with Cyclopean Ring.
Got it.
And again, new item. Unique passive. The passive will be your basic attacks against an enemy god deal extra bonus magical damage based on the enemy's maximum health. So that means if you're going to be hitting tankier characters, you're going to be dealing actual more bonus damage towards them.
Yeah.
Now the other interesting thing here is that it does have an ICD, but the ICD is further reduced the more successful basic attacks you deal.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
basically
So
magical.
if you're really
kids.
laying it out,
Yeah.
you're going to take that cooldown and
Deal
continue to be
more damage
successful.
to maximum health. Exactly.
So land the auto attacks. Got it. Sure, I'll do that.
That can't be that hard.
Yeah, I'm sure it can't be. So next up, the Tablet of Destinies.
Oh, I am so excited for
Those
this
items
one.
Learn me, please.
Well, this is going to be in the book tree, so with your Book of Thoughts, your Polynomicons, and this is a brand new way to stack items. We have never seen a stacking item like this before.
It's a fun way to
So,
stack items.
How this works is that to get stacks on Tablet of Destinies, you need to hit enemies with abilities. And so you can only ever gain one stack every 2 seconds, but this also has a separate trigger where you can only get them once per god per ability as well. So keeping that in mind, this item goes up to 50 stacks, and for each stack that you get, you deal true damage to enemy gods based on a percentage of your max mana. So more stacks, more damage, more mana, even more damage.
Yeah, so while there used to be a Book of the Dead in this kind of spot that was kind of playing on that max mana synergy for defensive stats, we found, again, pretty hard to balance because it was either too strong or too weak. Now you got an offensive option instead, again, playing off of that mana stat.
Yeah.
Exactly.
See, where I'm from, that kind of stacking, we call that playing the mini game, and that's like the greatest thing ever because you're like, all right,
Mini games are so fun.
man.
yeah, you're like, I'm already in here, I'm already doing it, but like, I gotta land all these abilities because that's how I'm gonna get my stacks. So absolutely love that. Look forward to that. So next up, we have the Bladed Boomerang. Now, I'm a Boomerang
this one's
fan.
fun too.
So how about the Bladed Boomerang?
So this is going to be a new crit item. And you can kind of, maybe you can't tell, but with the idea of this boomerang going on, the most important thing here, of course, is the passive. And the passive is when you next base attack an enemy, you'll actually spawn a deployable, kind of taking the idea from like the earrings that were, utilized, like manticores and stuff.
Yeah.
And if you pick up that deployable, you'll actually gain movement speed and more crit chance. So and
It's
this
a cool
also,
item.
the duration lasts long enough so that you can actually get more of these effects the more you're kind of picking up. So you can stack this effect up with the more boomerang pickups you gain.
Got it. So if you're
the
really
loop of it is just so much fun too, because you'll hit someone with your
So
boomerang,
it's basically
and
to
then
chase
it comes
people
on
down.
back to you and lands
Throw
on the
a
ground, and you can
boomerang,
pick it up.
a thing up
like
to chase
Chauncey
them.
said,
Throw
the
it,
whole
boom,
idea
bam,
is for you to
bam,
keep
bam,
these stacked
bam.
up,
Yeah.
and that movement speed and all
That's
of that other
sick.
extra stuff is going to be helping you to get to wherever they
Sick.
land, depending on how the randomness ends up on the ground. But
It is a short-term
It's
loop, though, so
basically
you're
a
not getting this buff
Draven
for like 30
mechanic,
seconds
yeah.
like that. The ICD is also pretty short
It's very
to keep
short.
that gameplay mechanic kind
Exactly.
of sustained. Also, the fun thing here is that it's pretty, while it is going to be coming back to you, the boomerang deployable, it's not like going to be perfectly at your feet. It's going to have a little bit of a variance kind of in between you and the enemy that you hit. But if you're a melee character, you're going to be collecting that boomerang right to your face. So you get like a little bit of an added bonus for that.
Boomerang to the face, as you might say. I just love the mental games that come with this too, especially as a hunter in lane of, am I gonna go for my boomerang? Am I not? Which way am I gonna go? You never know.
you
so
bet on the
playing
ability.
the
It's a
mental
Sokka
game.
I see a
mechanic.
circle they're gonna go
Apologies.
for, and then they use an ability, and you're over here, and you're like, haha.
Yeah, you thought.
I'm just imagining like I hadn't even thought about that on a melee character. Like with a hunter, it's like boomerang, and then with the hunter, it's like
Yeah, exactly. You're just holding on to that boomerang. You're not throwing
you
it,
gotta
right? You're
let
just
it go.
smacking them with it.
It has a blade
it's yours.
for
It's
a
exactly.
reason. I mean.
Yeah, so that's a great mental image I'm going to carry with me into you.
That
Jen.
item is going to be
Next
good.
up, Shadow Drinker. That's a nice edgy
Ooh,
name.
oh yeah. And the art on this one is so sick
is
too.
cool.
Oh
It
my
is.
gosh.
It is super cool.
So this is going into the katana tree with your other katana items
No,
like
kind of
your
replacing that
hasten.
stone cutting sword slot a little bit.
Yeah. Oh,
And the
rest
fun
in
part
peace.
about this one is, again, towards that passive, is if you get a kill on an enemy, you will be going invisible for the next few seconds. And so this invisibility is kind of treated like your Morrigan stealth, where if
I
you
think
do
this
anything,
item
you take,
people think is
basic
scarier
attack,
than it
you do
is.
ability, you get
It
hit by
gives
anything,
power,
you are instantly
pen,
broken
and
out of the
movement
stealth.
speed,
But
which is
you
strong.
also, in addition to this, get a movement speed buff. So
The
think of it
passive
that,
isn't
you're
what
getting
makes
the
it
stealth
strong.
and the
It's
movement
the
speed.
base
You
stats.
can be broken out of the stealth. The movement speed will stay on you the whole time.
Okay, so it's a good get in, secure the objective,
And sneak
hopefully
out.
get out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sneak your way out. Yep.
yeah, cool. So we drank the shadows. Now we got the Dawnbreaker.
Hey, yeah, these are great to
Oh,
put
yeah.
back
Yeah.
together. All right, so with the next 2 items, so a little bit of a spoiler there too, we wanted to play around with a little bit more utility effects based on the trigger, kind of like the Arthurian trigger of using your ultimate. So Dawnbringer, when your ultimate ability is finished casting, you actually gain protections and movement speed based on how many enemy gods are nearby you when you've done that. So kind of, again, playing with the active component of gaining a utility effect, but you want to specifically position yourself inside the enemy team or as close to as many enemies as you can.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right. So this is a great item for if you're diving into an engagement, all the enemies are there, you get that off, and then all of a sudden, max benefits, max battling, I guess.
You're feeling tanky, you're
40
feeling fast,
power,
you
300
are
health,
about to go crazy.
20%
in
CCR.
there. Cool. So that is
Protections,
Dawnbringer.
movement speed
Next
increased
up,
by
still going,
5%
still more
for
new
each
items.
enemy god.
Absolution.
This
Damn!
one has been so
That
fun
item's
to play
sick.
test. I can't even tell you the amount of times where I have been playing support and I wanted to pick this one up as soon as I can. Well, obviously, you know, there's a lot of more fun items coming up for the early game. This one's a great one towards the team fight stage. So what this item does is, like you said earlier with the Arthurian trigger, after you finish your ultimate, you pulse out a CC cleanse aura that cleanses people for a very short duration. So it's basically shorter beads for everybody around you. So for instance, I've been playing Atlas and I throw my Atlas ult out to get people going and then cleanse everybody of Ares ult or something.
Support can bead
it's just so
everybody
fun to add
for
that level of
0.6
control
seconds.
as a support to do these very fun supporty things. So I mean, I can't wait to see people go crazy with this one, to be honest. This has such a fun skill cap level, and especially that team play that comes alongside it.
It would be hard to time.
Supports are going to go even crazier than they already have been.
I was about to say, I can already see it, you know, especially in like professional play.
The CC immunity was longer beforehand. You guys are welcome.
Support comes in. Whoa, what an incredible ult. No CC. Fight is turned. So it's going to provide for a lot of sway, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I can't wait to see clips of that on the
like that's going to be
multi-seconds long.
So after the Absolution, we're moving on to an Abyssal Stone, not a Void Stone.
He said, no.
And you hit the nail on the head. We're playing around with that stone tree again. Again, no power, right? These are just going to be the defensive stats. So I wanted to readdress that for the hammers and the other things that we're talking about. We're looking at the stats as well.
Got it.
Pretty important. But Abyssal Stone, passive here, successful ability damage to an enemy god, actually will debuff them with negative cooldown reduction.
Never been seen before.
Crazy, right?
That's rude.
So this is something that we've kind of played around with, and we found this to be an opportune time to try and kind of test the waters with this. So it's the way this works is that when you hit the enemy and you apply this debuff to them, it's not going to be doing anything to any abilities that's currently on cooldown for them. It's going to be any new abilities that do while that debuff is there. So for example, I hit you. You then use your ultimate. Your ultimate now has a 20% longer cooldown than it would have had normal.
That's crazy.
Or any of your other abilities.
Yeah, any of your other abilities.
But that's like the best case scenario. Now again, similar to Blade of Boomerang in a way, this is a shorter loop where the debuff duration and the ICDs are kind of shorter to make you like able to kind of play around with the spectrum of multiple people in the team play.
Okay. That's crazy. I can only imagine you hit me with it. I'm like, you barely hurt me. I throw my ult out, especially as a Guardian, one of those really long cooldowns, and then I'm like, why? That's 10 seconds longer than it should be. So that's really cool. So next up we have I just lost all my words. We have
Archdruid's Fury.
Yeah, Archdruid's Spirit. I touched the button and I messed everything up.
This one's so much fun.
I've done that so many times, don't worry.
Right?
It's a good
This is an aggressive item for your
can't tell you guys. I'll let you know in a
that
second.
are planning to take a lot of damage, but they also want to deal some back in return. So
back a little bit. All right.
How the passive on this one works is for every 5% of damage that you take, you'll gain a stack. And then when you're ready to be rid of your stacks, which you can have a max of 6, you just got to walk up to someone, drop a basic attack, and they'll be taken.
I'll let you know a little bit later.
Just give them a bonk.
Just a little.
Then you hit him with a Carapace Shard as well.
Yeah,
and they're really feeling the pain.
Yeah, they're going to be losing quite a lot of health from that.
True that.
Woo!
All right, so the next item.
I'm focusing again.
One name item here, we have Phalanx.
Ooh.
Yeah, so Phalanx, again, similar to how Toxic Blade kind of absorbed a passive from another.
Yeah.
We've always found the design space and the kind of niche opportunity that Tyrannical Plate Helm to be really interesting and something that we can kind of play around with a little bit
Physical
more. So bring that in here a little bit with
Phalanx.
Phalanx. So passive, when you're when you're basic attacked by an enemy god, your friendly minions will be gaining a similar buff as before of attack speed and some protection.
When you basic attack friendly
now
minions,
the more you're basic attack, the more you're positioning yourself well, the more
they provide attack speed and 15 of each protection
with increased vigor.
Your homie's got you back in the lane.
Exactly.
This is especially fun in solo lane as
You're
like
buffing them up.
Basic attack, warrior counter. Like if your Bellona's trying to swing through the whole lane, King Arthur is trying to use his cleave autos. Well, you stand in one, not only are you making your minions stronger, but you can do the classic, I'm going to get the aggro for all your minions, group them all up, smack them together, and my minions are taking even less damage because you've hit me.
Yeah.
What the heck? That's
So,
crazy.
yeah, a lot of good trade potential. All right. And I love the name. Phalanx is just such a cool name. I don't know how else to say that.
And it's in the shield tree.
And it's in the shield tree. So next up, the Prophetic Cloak. Which this one, I think, evolves, too. So, yeah, let's get into
Prophetic Cloak is going to be
Cloak, this one's really interesting. Obviously, it's going to be the cloak tree.
Yeah.
This item's where it's at.
Designed because while we understand that Gauntlet of Thieves is kind of a strong design space, it's kind of hard to dethrone the king in a way. We've seen that a little bit with Mail of Renewal in the past, and it's not necessarily that we want to remove it as an option. We kind of just wanted to give it an actual competitor. So Prophetic Cloak, it's actually going to be very interesting where you can damage different types of classes of gods, and based on the one that you damage, you're going to be gaining protections as an aura for that class. So if I hit you and you were playing a hunter, I'm going to be gaining an aura of physical protections for myself and my team.
Yeah.
Now, if I then go over to the mid lane, or if you're playing arena and you're hitting multiple people, and you go and hit a mage, you're going to be gaining a stacking magical aura.
Oh, that's crazy.
So it's a stacking aura based on the class of enemy that you've been hit for protections. And when you get to full max stacks, I think it's what, 15 each.
Look at this evolution. Look at this evolution, bro.
Having those
Wait for it.
physical protections as a stat and as an aura. And it'll be gaining a completely different effect, where if you have over a certain amount of protections as a whole, you actually gain bonus damage mitigation.
Dang.
So the more protections you have, the more mitigation you gain.
That's cool. Yeah,
two different tiers.
That's a lot of stats, and I like the way that works too, because
if you
it's
have
situational.
400 total
protection,
protections, you gain 10% damage mitigation. If you have over 600, you gain an additional 10.
20% mitigations.
A lot of what I'm seeing and what I'm loving is skill expression, and how you get to pick and choose when you're fighting and what stats you have for these environments, and showing off what you're best at.
This
one's also really interesting because there's also designed downsides as well. Where if you're versing like a very heavy magical based team, or 4 or 5 or 4 or 5 physical based team, this may not be the best option, because then you're stacking up on like a dual stat, or if they have 5 of one stat completely,
they can't stack it if you pick 5 of the same damage.
It
is true. If you have 5 physicals, you can never get this item stacked. So
that's magical damage.
So there you go.
You get reduced magic damage, and the rest of their team is physical, and you're like, good for the stacks. The buff means nothing.
Exactly.
So
yeah. Gotta be planning when you get this one, and planning who you're attacking too. This is great at really dictating, your rotations as well. Because like Clumsy was saying, if you need to go and get some magical stacks, time to go to mid.
Time to wander. Yeah.
Yeah, it's time to start roaming the map.
All right, looks like we have one new item. There's a lot of items,
There's
right?
a lot.
So the Cannoneers, Curious? Yeah. That's a word I don't use very often in my day-to-day life. So pronounce it right for me. Yeah, no, not often.
So this item is kind of another alternative to Thieves, but this is more along the lines of...
It's very early game focused, for sure.
Very early game focused, but it's really great at funneling your carry. So this is basically designed for supports. It's very hard to use this in the solo because of its passive, and let's get into that.
Talk about it.
Every few seconds, you're able to instantly kill a lane minion. Not jungle minions, not jungle bosses, lane
Just
minions.
the lane minions, got it.
Very, very clear about that. This is for the lane only. So you do kill this, and then if there is an ally within your range, they're going to get bonus gold. So you might be thinking, well, I don't want the last hits. This case, you do, because you're giving them a ton of gold.
Got it.
And in addition to that, when you blow up that minion, well, like I said, it blows up. It deals damage to enemy minions in a small aura. So it's setting up for last hits too. So not only are you funneling gold, but you're getting your carry extra last hits too if they're able to get those extra hits on those minions that have been brought lower.
Wow, yeah, that's just a lot of benefits. That's a lot of good support benefits too, because like you said, the explosion, the extra gold, I just love that. That's another way to contribute to your laner while you're still hanging out in lane.
Yeah, and the explosion is not intended to kill those minions, because again, it's a little bit counterintuitive. Don't get me wrong, because generally you want the sustain from not getting the last hits.
Yeah.
But setting up the last hits for your ally and granting them extra gold, being able to do that and min-max this kind of passive and how often it's up is going to be really, really crucial
Bonus
to getting your
gold
Hyper
is
Gear
always
ADC,
a really
your
good
Artemis,
stat
your
in
Freya,
Smite,
whoever
so
it might
we'll see how
be.
it goes.
That's a really, really keen strategy for those characters that need gold to get going.
Yeah, and I mean, I can already see the use cases of this because like
Also,
you've won a
spoiler,
good trade,
if it's late where
you gotta
you
get
are,
back, you want to crash the wave. This will help you get them
and
ready
you're
for
just
last
barely
hits.
trying
your
to
person
hang
last
on
hits, the wave
past
is
the
clear
patch
faster.
notes.
You're going back quicker.
You're gonna
want to
hang on
lets
past
you,
the patch
You have your
notes.
foot on that lead,
That's
and it lets you
your
take
spoiler.
another step up. So.
Exactly.
If you don't want to think about the min-max too much, you just
It's gonna be
pick
a
this up and you're clearing the wave a
long
little
day.
bit faster. So,
Yep.
so that way, if you have like
There
a
you
hunter
go.
with low clear, whatever it may be, or your guardian with low clear, you're now just being a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gebs of the world rejoice.
Hooray! So cool, and that is gonna do it for the new items. We still got we still got some items, a little bit of general balance left because.
Yeah, the previous categories we've gone through the hybrid items, we've gone through all the like the reworked items, the stat shifts, we've gone through the new items. That's like the whole bunch of like one big pass. Now it's kind of just like general balance.
Yeah,
right?
the stuff you'd see.
Now we're just talking about
General
normal patch stuff
balance
but
section.
in regards to year 10.
Yeah, so and we're gonna kick that off with some starter items. So it looks like the first of them is the Archmage gem.
Yeah, so I think we can breeze through these a little bit faster,
Go
not just the
for it.
starter items, just in general, because these are just general
Breeze
buffs and
through
nerfs
it.
that,
Yeah, dive
they're
into
not
it.
Magical
that
power
expensive.
scaling
starter
increase.
items,
Nice.
We saw a lot of mage changes before.
20 to 30
or,
at max,
whether
that's
it's
a big
the
deal.
Hunters that are a little bit more prevalent in the mages, Sands of Time getting buffed. Archmage's gem and as a whole just wasn't really as strong. So small buffs there. It's going to be gaining some more damage.
Yep.
Easy peasy.
Cool. And then yeah, so a lot of the starter item changes, like you said. I mean, a lot of starter item changes. So let's just keep going down the list.
Do it.
Yeah,
Sure.
so I guess on top of that one, Gem of Focus.
Yeah.
As an upgrade, it'll be gaining a little bit more increased movement speed and a little bit more damage, but we're going to be losing on that mitigation.
Yep. So
Yeah.
that's super great for your tanky characters, your
So
spammy
less good
characters
for
in the lore. It's
Guardians,
still
but maybe
really
better
good
for
to
mages.
keep that extra
Okay.
damage going.
Okay.
But you're just not going to be as survivable anymore.
Yeah, not
That helps
quite as
push
long.
away from like the bruiser lineup as
Yeah,
well that we
exactly.
saw. But
Got
there's
it.
a whole bunch of changes coming into year 10.
Yeah.
True that,
That's
a lot
not
of
the
them.
only starter item change we've got coming.
Yeah, so after Gem of Focus, we have Bluestone Pendant.
Yes. So the biggest change here is one that we referenced a little bit earlier with Glad Shield, where this will be getting that damage after.
The subsequent damage.
Subsequent damage. That's the word I was looking for.
Reduction.
No
And
more
the important thing
crazy
here to note
blue
as well,
stuff spamming.
I did the
Okay.
math on these. Is some of these numbers look like they're massive buffs because they need, the damage component themselves needs to be increased at least a little bit if the subsequent damage is going to be reduced by a lot. Because if you are not someone who has a lot of abilities, you're going to be. If we didn't actually buff the numbers, you're going to just be severely hurt by this.
Yes.
And even then, even with that in mind, even with the increased damage numbers, it's still going to be slightly worse than it was before.
Yeah, this just levels the playing field for
Poor
the characters
Medusa
that have
Bluestones.
a million abilities, like King Arthur, and those
true.
that have 4, like our boy Sun Wukong.
Got it.
And specifically for Bluestones as well, because they're a little bit more unique than Glad Shields, that they had a dot effect. There's no the actual amount of stacks is going to be reduced to just one. So it's no longer going to be stacking up to twice. It's just the one stack, a little
Just the
bit
one
more
time.
similar to the others.
Yep.
Got it. Because, moving on to that, we have Corrupted Bluestone and Bluestone Brooch, both in line.
Effectively the exact same
Yep.
thing.
Got it.
Subsequent damage reduction. Damage numbers look a lot higher, but it's also no longer stacking.
Okay.
Easy peasy. All right, so how about the Warding Sigil? What's going on with that one?
Oh, this one is going to be very fun. So Warding Sigil, ever since we introduced starter items, it's been a little bit difficult to see this guy get any play in Conquest, which is always a little bit sad to see. So this is going to
Interesting.
give a little bit of sustain now for each stack of damping
little
that you get. So
heal.
you get protections and you get healing for 1% of your max
Okay.
health over those next few seconds.
Little heal.
And does that carry into Sigil of the Old Guard, or how's that changing?
Yeah, so we are also bringing those up, I do believe.
Yeah, so there's the old guard as well. We'll be gaining kind of a similar change.
Yeah,
there.
similar level, but
Got it.
again,
Okay.
upgraded.
Yeah,
this is
obviously
the
the-
Little bit of
level 20
sustain
version
there.
of it.
Of
So
course. All right.
a bit extra there.
So continuing to dive forward, Sundering Axe. What's
Yeah.
happening there?
Just like so many different things going on. Just like make
Oh,
sure I'm
yeah.
on the right page.
I get ya.
Sundering Axe, this one's going to just be a small buff to the current health steal.
Okay.
But the interesting one coming up is the Axe of Animosity.
Get into it.
So this used to be Hero's Axe.
Yeah, it
and
was
Yep.
changed.
If you
okay.
can tell by the name change, it's now going to be the Axe of Animosity because there's going to be kind of like a passive swap coming up.
Got
Huh.
Which we'll get into the next one. So Axe, the Animosity effect is now going to live on what used to be Hero's Axe. So now it's going to be in the Warrior's Axe tree. Because of that, there's going to be a little bit of stat reduction with the protections being reduced
Got
for
it.
what is now Axe of Animosity. But it will now be dealing the Animosity effect. So the passive will be your basic attacks deal bonus damage equal to a percentage of
Okay.
your maximum health to enemies and structures. So again, Animosity, was a little bit of an odd spot for kind of like this very aggressive effects, but on a support starter item.
Yeah.
Now it makes a lot more sense. For
yeah,
those
that does make a lot more sense.
I guess in the next one, it's Animosity is now changed to Heroism, because if Animosity no longer exists, now we need that new starter item, which was previously the Hero's Axe passive.
That makes a lot more sense, don't it? Huh?
Got it. So yeah, just with the Heroism from Animosity,
it sure do.
Axe of Animosity. Got it. Read the patch notes. So continuing to move on. What about Warflag? Warflag's getting some love.
Yes, this is so exciting. Warflag has had a little bit of trouble in Conquest. It's been insane in modes like Arena and Assault, where everyone's kind of lined up in front of you and ready to get a hit to get those gold triggers. But we're changing the gold trigger to make it a little bit more effective in all of the modes. Equally, you might say. So we're kind of taking a little bit from the other starter items in the support role specifically, and making it so that whenever you are getting that killer assist that would normally just give you that attack speed and movement speed, it's also now going to give you that gold trigger. But again, this item is different from Sentinels and different from Benevolence in that the sustain is a lot less, because you are getting these extra aggressive stats in the attack speed and movement speed. So it still has that very applicable gold that you do want as a support. But now you're having those extra aggressive stats, and by all means, movement speed, attack speed,
it actually
really helpful, especially in the early game.
It could be more relevant now.
Into
the gold is why you couldn't use it.
So it's a very similar kind of transfer, where this is getting gold per 5 instead of that extra effect. You're just going to get a very consistent flow of gold in, instead of having to once again play around that old basic attack trigger.
Gold per 5 is strong.
Right. Cool. So we're kind of out of the starter realm, it looks like, because we're moving on to Erendite getting a bit of a buff.
Yep, so these are honestly a little bit almost, well, I was going to say it's going to be easier to explain, than I just saw what's next. So maybe not. Erendite needs a buff, it's getting a buff.
Boom. Easy peasy.
Physical power scaling.
Next up, a little more complicated. Aussie getting a shift a little bit.
Right, so Aussie, so we're shifting this item to be a little bit more of a high power, high lifesteal item, but it's going to be losing the penetration to balance that. And you're going to see a little bit of these shifts coming up in several of the items coming in this
50 power, 20 lifesteal, 20 attack speed.
Increasing the power by double, so it's going to go to 25 to 50. Increasing the lifesteal a little bit. Decreasing the attack speed,
that's a real item.
But you're completely losing that physical penetration. So one of the reasons why that power is doubling.
Yeah, so this would typically be the second item that you'd see in those kind of
the
Transcendence
HP threshold
Power
is also
Hunter
increasing,
builds.
which is very important.
And so we kind of wanted to give it a little bit more of a lend to that build by giving it some extra power. Now it's a little bit in more of that space where if you want to deal a lot of damage with your abilities, you're having a better time at doing that because you've got that extra power for your scaling.
Makes sense. So the next one on the list, Atalanta's Bow, also kind of a shift.
Oh yeah, this is a lot of changes here for Atalantis. And this item has been a little over the place, in the past couple of years with crit chance, no crit chance, so we've got no more crit chance.
Okay.
And now we are just going to a little bit more power, a little bit more attack speed, and we're decreasing the con a little bit. It's also cost.
It's also, it's removing lifesteal too.
Yeah.
So 2 stats being removed.
But
yeah, it's a lot.
It has 10% physical penetration now.
Exactly.
So
a pen option,
Yep, this is now more focused into that little bit of lifesteal build that you see, where it's a little bit easier to get into this percentage pen.
Aussie certainly looks more enticing with no pen.
You're getting nice little splash there.
Just a little splash. Speaking of little splashes, Bloodforge also getting just a pretty straightforward buff.
Pretty straightforward. It's going to be getting that cost decrease. It's a little bit
pretty thick buff.
High cost for what it was providing, but also a little bit of that movement speed increase as well. Just got honestly an item that just might be undervalued. It's you want to just like give it a little bit of a flavor, fun buff, so that people pick up.
That is a flavor, fun buff right there.
Love.
Before it was a little bit of a luxury item, now it's at least a little bit more affordable.
Got it. All right, so the Crusher also having quite the list of changes, more shifting.
Yeah, this one's very, very cool. So previously in the Maestry, there was only 1% pen option. But we decided that we'd like to open it up to another one for different kinds of characters, because Titan's Bane's really good on a particular subset of characters that slamming all their abilities down at once and just being done. Whereas Crusher is a little bit more for those, not necessarily spammy characters, but characters that have a lot of abilities coming out over time. So Crusher is still going to be keeping the general vibe of how it works. It's going to be getting that subsequent hit that we talked about before.
There it is.
But we are changing the penetration to be percentage.
And because of that, like, that shift, it's no longer flat.
That item looks pretty
kind of shifting
sick.
it to be more of like a late
Not
game.
an early game item. It's a late game item, but sick.
To be percent pen in early game, that those two generally don't go as close to hand to hand. So it's going to be gaining a lot more. So it's like the cost is going to be nerfed, or it's going to be gaining a lot more of a cost price. But it's also going to be gaining a lot more power.
I like
it's going to be gaining some more attack speed as well.
40% from the passive, by the way. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
And because of the percent pen, we're going to see this kind of a mirror shift. It's going to be off of the Warrior's Bane item instead of where it was previously.
Okay. Cool.
We'll see this mirror as well for the mages too.
Yeah, and moving forward again, dominance. Also kind of a shift, a little smaller of a shift it looks like, but still some shifting.
Yeah, so we wanted to give this one a little bit more of an identity, right? Between this and Silver Branch, it was kind of hard to decide, do I go this one or do I go that one? So this one is getting a little bit of love towards that hunter direction. It's getting attack speed,
and only lost
it's basically
5%
shifting the penetration away from just being in the base, so it's not really as helpful on those characters that aren't really using their basic attacks. This is now moving it from the just general stats to the passive. So your basic attacks doing more penetration, but you're not having it on your regular normal abilities.
And now I'm going to complicate things a lot further. I was like staring at the patch notes for a while, or the show flow for a little while, because I was trying to figure out where it is. Silver Branch Bow, I feel like we'll move that up. I want to skip to that because it's somewhere else. Silver Branch Bow exists in the same realm as a lot of these pen options, so I want to make sure we address that. It's going to be actually losing from 20% to 10% of its physical penetration. And that's also a lot of the reason why we're seeing these shifts, not just on dominance, but also, like we said, on Atalantis as well. We want to just kind of spread out that percent pen from Silver Branch, which has historically just kind of been a little bit too strong, and move that along to some of those different items.
Yes.
So I wanted to address that one too.
It's not that kind of catch-all that you just buy in every build, even if you're not making use of the passive. Now you really have to say, okay, am I going to actually use this passive to make it worth it? Do I need it, or will I just go buy new dominance instead?
Because the passive as well is quite strong. Like we want to make sure that kind of shines for what its purpose is.
Quite strong there, Tubbsy.
I need the stats.
Quite a strong passive.
So got it. So the next shift, Devourer's Gauntlet, has a ton of changes to it. If you want to get
ton of changes.
Yeah,
it's getting an increased cost. Got to make sure that Transcendence and Red Gloves kind of live in a more competitive
item.
A little bit too cheap. Gonna go increased.
Yeah, 100 changes, one for each coin. All right, next up, Emperor's Armor also getting a shift.
Yeah, so this has been one of the most MVP
Increased
valuable items across the board for supports, just because it's had a humongous value in the passive and the stats by itself. So it's going to be going up in cost, but in addition to that, the passive is actually going to be getting a little bit stronger on the offensive end. So a little bit easier for you to dive, but you're going to have to pay a little bit more for those stats now because they're pretty good.
They're pretty nice. So you got to pay a premium for the good things. Mail of Renewal also getting a shift.
A little bit of shift there. We saw, like we talked about with Gauntlet of Thebes, it had a little bit of some time there in the sun where it was kind of living as a competitor there. Now we're going to be decreasing the cost a little bit, increasing the health and the HP 5, but also in turn we're going to be decreasing the protection. So kind of leaning in on the health and the HP 5 as the stats that are kind of premier for that item, and then decreasing the protections to make space for some of the other items. This shift also kind of lives in line with the kind of the tree identity that we were talking about before, just making sure that this is a little bit more emphasized on the stats that would make sense for it.
Yeah, that falls in line with the identity of its tree. Okay, cool. So then we have Midgardian Mail. Look like it's getting a little bit of change too.
Yeah, so as you'll have noticed previously, Witchblade out the door. Nemean Line out the door. So in turn, we got to make sure that our hunter counter item is a little bit more applicable here. So we're just giving it a little bit more prot. So when you do buy it, now you know exactly which one you should be buying at any given point because there's only one option now. So it's really a lot less complicated, a lot less like min-maxing what the stats are. But in addition to that, Midgard is just a little bit stronger now.
A little stronger. And then Oni Hunter's Garb, also a little bit of a shift.
A little bit of shift there. We're going to be decreasing the health just by 50, but in turn, we're going to be increasing the passive. Again, leaning away from the stats, being sure the passive is a little more.
All right, what'd I miss?
Got it. So Rage, getting a little bit more Rage time.
This one's super fun because Rage is kind of like an all or nothing item, right? Where you don't really want this if it's not stacked, but if it is fully stacked, you're having a great time. But to give it a little bit more of a nice smooth curve to where you get to that top point, we're giving it power every time that you stack it.
So you're going to gain 5 physical power per stack, but we're also going to be decreasing how many stacks it is to the top end, so it doesn't feel as like rough, like the variance between having some stacks and having all the stacks. So it's just going to be going from 5 to 4, and then Evolved Rage is also going to be hit with that too.
Physical power is always nice. Merge Rejoice.
But you're going to be increasing in your physical power.
Okay, yeah, a little extra swing in that in the Rage
55 physical power.
So Rod of Tahuti, also a little bit of a buff, also nice and simple.
Yeah, we're just kind of gear shifting here straight away back to
that's
Mages
nice.
from,
Another
Rage,
hard shift, yeah.
2850.
Okay, here we are, now in Mage Land. Rod of Tahuti, just too expensive for what it was offering in our minds. So we're bringing it down a little bit. This also does reflect upon the glyphs as well, so they are additionally that overall price that you would be going to get either the two up there, also going down just a bit.
That's a nice one.
Awesome, and we talked about this one a little earlier, but Silver Branch Bow having that shift. So yeah, we'll move forward with that. Spear of the Magus shift back into Mage World.
Yeah, exactly. So this is kind of mirroring the shift we saw on the Hunter side.
Yeah.
So now we have Spear of the Magus, which is going to be building off the spell focus tree because its flat pen is going to be turning into percent pen.
Got it. Easy peasy. All right, and it looks like we have one more, and that's the Sphinx's Bauble getting a buff.
Oh yeah, so Sphinx's Bauble has been in and out of the meta. It's very close to being viable right now, and in some very specific builds. So we just want it to be a little bit more worth its price, make it a little bit easier to get into. It still is almost 100% a luxury item. Don't go buying this first item because it's going to make it a little bit worse for you. But we want to still lean into its full power mage potential, start giving it more power, and dropping the price a little bit.
Awesome.
Try it out. I promise you, it's really not that bad. It's not that far off.
Pick it up, 3 or 4
Give it a shot.
In fact, it's pretty good.
Have some fun.
I would say it's pretty good.
On the right characters. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, don't be buying.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is not a unanimous bias in every game.
Yeah. So
all the characters that can really use their cooldowns. Exactly. Like, I'm thinking like Nuwa. Oh my God, can you imagine the ults going off that fast? Yeah, it's much better now.
All right. So that was items. We've did it. We made
it
to the
items.
Between water and something else.
Through items. Only one P break through items.
We got one. So we still got more balance. For those of you, if you're following along the patch notes, awesome. There's been a lot of stuff we've gone over. We have a little more balance to go through. We have gods now. But like with the items, there's some standard balance in there because, of course, we're always tweaking things. But we got to start with something new. This is year 10. It's a big 1-0. So we got some new stuff to talk about for the gods on the battleground. And let's get into it with some class bonuses.
So this is a completely new mechanic.
Year 10 is a whole new game, baby.
Similar to how shards were an item-based gameplay feature that affects all game modes. Class bonuses is going to be affected.
And maybe we're going to be playing it right after these patch notes.
What these really are is that you've got your 5 classes.
Smash those Twitch primes if you want to.
Did I get that right? It's like just making sure. And each of these classes, I mean, as simple as it sounds, are going to be gaining their own bonuses. It's basically kind of stats, usually that are either there at the base or gaining per level. That are kind of the goal for these are to lean in on the identity of what these classes are for, and just play a little bit more into that. So it'll be a better example when we go for the first one.
Yeah, start getting into it. Yeah,
Warriors are going to be gaining 5 flat cooldown reduction, as well as 0.25% per level. So that's going to be
5% cooldown up to 10% level 20.
Yeah.
A lot of these, I don't want to go too far into when things are linked to each other, but obviously, if you remember from the Conquest discussion, if you were there for that, blue buff lost its cooldown reduction.
Yeah.
It was some of that was on the silver buff, but this is just one way of playing around with what
built-in cooldown is a good class passive, by the way.
Bruiser instead of like a guardian bruiser, is we want to play around with their abilities.
That's a good class passive.
It can be kind of more basic attack focus, you can be more ability focused, but warriors as a whole want to exert their pressure in the lane, whether it's Conquest or still exert your pressure everywhere else on the battlefield if you're in a different game mode. So you're now going to be gaining flat cooldown reduction as well as some scaling to level 20.
Yep.
Nice. Next up we have assassins. What are their bonuses going to be?
Yeah, so let's get into that. So
what do assassins?
Assassins get built-in pen.
I don't say it's a problem, right? Because we love to see class flexibility. We love to see people
scary.
Different characters in different places. But one thing that we wanted to try and establish with this is to say these characters are meant to be the best at this specific role, this specific task. Yeah. And so assassins, their task is to go and gank people, right?
Deal damage.
So
killer machine.
It's
only 5 flat pen, but keep in mind they get 5 flat pen at level 1.
They want flat pen.
That's strong at level 1.
So
that's what they asked for.
We're going to be giving them 5 plus 0.25 per level physical penetration. So this will be 5 at level 1, and then at level 20, it'll end up at 10.
Beautiful. Next up, we have mages. And what are the mages? What do they ride a
They want a lot of
Mages want damage.
Give me
Whether
power!
it's for killing people or
Damage.
killing
Power.
NPCs or whatever it may be.
Clearing the
so they
wave,
want damage.
whatever. They want
So
damage.
we're gonna see a little bit of kind of a mirrored effect here, or kind of like a yin and yang effect here for the mages and the hunters.
Yeah.
So I want to
Give me that 20 magical power at level
mages are
1,
getting a little bit more
baby.
damage up front, so you'll see that their base a little bit more, and hunters are going to be gaining something for a little bit later for the late game. So we want to make sure that this is one mechanism of balance that allows us to say, like, hey, we know his season 9 mages have kind of been pushed out of the spotlight. It's, whether it's in mid or whatever mode you might be
Everything
playing.
is
But
OP,
specifically as well
nothing
in
is
the
OP,
SPL, we saw
man.
a lot of
Dota
double
balancing
hunters going on,
techniques.
and one of the reasons why was because the lane pressure they exert. Right. So we wanted to say, hey, mages, we want to make sure that they're a little bit stronger in the early game, especially compared to hunters.
Got it.
At least in what they're good for.
Yeah.
So mages are going to be gaining 20 bonus magical power, which is more than some tier 1s.
Yeah.
As well as just 1 per level. So scales from 20 all the way to 40. 20 early game is a lot.
That's a
40
lot.
late game,
Yeah.
not as much.
Got it. All
Nice.
right. And another good change though. So what are my Guardians getting? What did they want?
Well, Guardians are the best at tanking. They're really
That's
good
true.
at getting in
Up
the
to
front line and
20%
disrupting a lot. But
CCR.
they're
That's
also really
good,
good
man.
at absorbing CC.
That's good.
So
Yeah.
to kind of go alongside that, they're getting base crowd control reduction. So they're going to start with 10, and they're going to get plus 0.5% per level. So they're going to
Nice.
start at 10% CCR at level 1 and end at 20% CCR at level
Really
20.
good for
Well,
Guardian.
as a Guardian player, I've learned there are no problems I could not stop with my face. So I like that.
Exactly.
And,
I mean,
yeah.
some of the items have a very similar vibe, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? The goal is for them to hit my face. So let's just make that
Yeah, let's
a
just
thing.
get in there.
Right.
You're
So
getting rewarded for getting hit this time.
it's my favorite.
And
so.
it's a lot of stats. Crowd control
Support's
reduction is
eating
one of those stats
good
that may
into
not
your
seem
10.
very exciting at first,
Yeah.
but it provides you a lot of passive benefits. And 10%
Yeah,
base
they are.
going to 20%, that's almost, you could say, it's a lot more of a stat than some of these other classes that are what they're
Exactly.
doing. Right?
Yeah.
Yes, just the overall power of being able to avoid CC chains just in general, especially as the Guardian, whose whole point is to really take these for their more squishier characters.
Yeah.
It's so helpful to have the stat just ready to go.
And it also like leans you away from like feeling that if there's ever a time where you wanted beads, you can now maybe move towards this another
Yes, that
20%
as well.
CCR option or 10%, build up that CCR to its cap, and then go for a completely different relic.
Yeah. and then
all of these
diversify the
apply
build,
to the
continue to
stat
show
cap.
expression by using other items.
all
Stuff
apply
I
to
love. I'm
the stat
excited
cap.
about it. So last class, hunters. What are the hunters getting?
So hunters, we were talking about that yin yang effect
with the
between
mages, yeah.
So mages got a little bit more early. Hunters are actually getting nothing. Flat. Well, they're getting a little bit. Okay. They're getting a little
Hunters
bit
are
more
getting
flat, but
nothing,
also,
idiots.
it's increased basic attack damage over time. So they're going to be getting 0.5% per level increased damage on specifically their basic attacks. That means they're going to be scaling from 100% basic attack damage to 110%. That might not sound like a lot.
It's a lot.
That is a whole
It's a
bunch,
lot.
It's a
especially
lot.
when you
It's a
factor
lot.
like
They
crits
get
and all the power
10%
they can be getting, but it's
auto-scaling
also
throughout
just
the
for their
game.
basic attacks, not for their abilities. And that
It
leaves
is a lot.
kind of the last round out.
They don't get anything at level 1, though.
Ending speech for this the class bonuses as a whole. As we talked a little bit about the nuances between them, but one thing that's important is we definitely understand on the design team that there's people that are going to go, hey, what about the classes that kind of transcend roles, right?
Yeah.
What about the ADC mages that are going to be getting bonus magical power, which they might like, but maybe they wanted to increase basic attack scaling. As I mentioned in the beginning, we want to kind of focus these classes with these stats in mind, but that doesn't mean we want to ignore the fact that there are kind of these subclass
Yeah, that they can
mechanisms.
shift around. Yeah.
Exactly. So whether it's mage assassins or whether
To be
bruisers,
honest,
guardians,
Chronos with the
whatever it may
bonus
be,
power
Yeah.
buff is probably
you're going to
better
see a
to
little
get
bit
in the
more
play.
nuanced shifts maybe in their god balance specifically if you want to play around with that, but these class bonuses are a little bit more focused.
Yes.
Got it.
So we're going to be keeping a close eye on those characters that do transcend their classes. But just in case, we want to make sure that this is going well at the beginning, and then, if we need to adjust them further, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, always looking for y'all's feedback. If y'all like, man, mages do slap though, then let us know and we'll keep an eye on it. So looks like besides just the classes, there are also a couple overall stat changes happening, starting with some magical protections, it looks like.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. So we were looking at, as a whole,
Oh,
what's going on
makes
with all the
sense.
different
Yeah.
classes, different stats, and one of those things that we noticed is there's always been this kind of flat amounts of magical protections that all these characters have had. and It's
Interesting.
always
Of course, yeah.
been the same as well for all the classes.
Yeah.
This was a time to evaluate whether that was necessary.
Squishier,
so,
mages,
as you can see
hunters, and
here,
assassins.
it's actually quite simple. We're going to be decreasing what was 38.4
very specific
magical protections for all of the classes, which is very unlike physical protections, by the way, to be a little bit more incentivized for, or not incentivized, categorized between each of the classes. So the squishy classes, mages, hunters, assassins, are going to be going all the way to 30 magical protections. Warriors a little bit more than that at 32. Guardians the most because they're the tank is leaning in on that at 35. Still all lower than 38.4 from before, and to make up for that, they're going to be gaining magical protections per level from 1.2, which is what they were all at, to 1.6, so that they're scaling at least to go a little bit higher.
Got it. And that makes sense, though, especially for some of the squishier classes, because, a normal person with a bow and arrow, it makes sense they get hurt a little more than a person with rocks for skin. So, yeah, that just makes sense. So, but what about base attack power, which is also getting a little shifted, but it looks like just for one class?
Right. So hunters specifically, again, playing on the fact that they were a little bit too strong in the early game. We talked about how they didn't really get a shift for the early game except for increased strength. We still want to make sure that there's going to be a difference between the hunters and the mages specifically. They're going to be gaining a basic attack power decreased by 5, which honestly will probably matter the most around level 1s through 3. After that, every item that you get is going to be changing that quite a bit.
Pretty close to the same.
It's really talking about that, specifically the early game difference between
somewhere Zapman's like,
Cool. Well, that's it for the crazy out-of-pocket changes. We still have some general balance we got to talk about, though. Starting with the nerfs. So Ishtar getting the first nerf. I'm sorry.
You got this.
All you.
So Ishtar has been an amazing release. We have loved seeing her get a bunch of pro play. We love seeing her in ranked. All of those stats have been really great to see. However, she is definitely showing up a little bit too much, you might say. Although she loves being in the spotlight, don't get me wrong, she's gonna take a step down for a little bit. So first thing we're doing is we're taking the flat damage from strike shot down. So this is the AoE lob shot that you'll be seeing from the new arrows. This one is going down just a little bit in base damage. And then Blades of Retribution, that awesome ultimate with the swords. Each subsequent hit of that sword is now going to be doing
if those are the only two changes, she'll be fine.
At that upper limit of 80%
she'll be
reduction.
Literally fine.
Swords are not doing less than 20% damage, but each individual one that you hit in addition to the first is going to be doing less now.
Okay, got it. So
can we nerf her audio volume, though?
A little bit of nerf as well.
And I completely love. Yeah, no, exactly. Let me go back to make sure because I completely.
I'm always down for a Lancelot nerf.
But I don't know what this one is in general. So Lancelot, also an amazing release. Also a little bit too strong, right? Is that like the keyword, the synonyms there?
That's fine by me.
He actually. We saw him in the SPL quite a bit, but when we were looking in regards to his stats, it's kind of like the upper ranks level. It's his band stats, right? The frustration against him that's a little bit too strong. He's overperforming, but not by a wide margin. So we wanted to hit him with a couple of damage nerfs to just make sure that he falls in line.
Yeah, to bring him back in a little bit.
He's not too oppressive in his assassin, especially with this new map coming up. We have to be very careful with that too.
True.
He's got his horse. He's going to be moving around that battlefield.
His horse is amazing.
Exactly.
So good.
So piercing thrust is going to be decreasing the physical power scaling by 5%, but that can of course happen twice. So it's overall at 10% if you do get the 2 hits. And then the ultimate is base damage. It was just hitting a little bit too hard before you had any
10% less scaling on his one, but 40% more scaling with Crusher.
Next on the nerf list, Thor getting a little bit of nerf. Anvil of Dawn.
Yeah, so Thor has been really amazing ever since he got that change to his wall. So since then, he has had
was it the Anvil of Dawn that made it strong, or was it his wall doing
So that
damage?
somewhere is going to be that arc damage on Anvil of Dawn. So we just want to make sure that if you are getting comboed by him, that one-shot potential that Thor has, if he does hit you with the full combo, is not going to be as strong. You're going to have a little bit more wiggle room there to get time to beads and Aegis before, you're just smashed to oblivion under the hammer.
So, all right, one more nerf to talk about in God World, and that is Vulcan getting a little bit of a nerf.
Right, so Vulcan got the little bit changed to backfire before. It's something we stick by. It's something that we have seen him perform to great success. And one thing that the extra movement, the extra kind of ability to maneuver on the battlefield has shown is that his damage is now a little bit too high for what he can now do.
Up there.
So backfire, we're going to be decreasing the magical power scaling by 10%, and we're also increasing that cooldown just by 1 second flat. Just with a little extra maneuverability, we want to just tone him down, specifically with backfire.
Yeah,
he's been doing very well.
All right, so that does it for nerfs. We are now into the god buffs area, seeing which gods are getting a little stronger with this update. Starting with Achilles getting a little bit of a buff.
Yeah, so Achilles has been
really
in and out of the
bad.
meta every so often. He's really good against very tanky
that's a
characters
huge
that he
buff.
can execute, of course. But when it comes to most other matchups, he does struggle quite a bit.
15% lane mini damage.
His clear is very dependent on enemy positioning. So I wanted to give a little bit of love to Shield of Achilles, specifically in that clear department. So lane minions only, not jungle minions, will be taking extra damage from this ability, of course respecting the inner and outer cones of a shield. So you'll be able to clear a little bit better with this one, so more consistent across the board. And then Radiant Glory, which is in general your sustain option for Achilles, is going down in cooldown by 1 second. And this is just going to help him have a little bit of extra sustain to exist in the laning phase.
Yeah, to continue to be. Awesome. Artemis next up. Scary Bear getting a little less. Oh no, that's
Jay guy's here.
Oh no, you caught me.
I was just like, wait a second. I made it like Tuscan. Like,
Scary Boar. That's what I said.
Yeah, exactly.
What's going on?
Although a lot of this is going to be focused away from the ulti this time because we know that ulti is really good.
Yeah, of course.
But going off that one, Transgressor's Fate,
More
kind of one that like limited. That's
more
the
suppressed
traps,
damage.
the first ability for Artemis.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more limiting than we would like. You know, it's been historically 3 for a long time, but we think it's time for it to be gaining an increased number count. So it's going to be going to 3 on the battlefield at a time to 4. So you can kind of position them a little bit more for safety if you want that to do that, or at least keep
I'm still undecided whether the bigger map is helping or hurting Artemis. The lane is so scary for her, but the jungle might be so far away.
You got to cover.
So, and then suppress the insolent. That's going to be the third ability. Just getting a little bit more damage because whether it's with the 9.5 changes from before or just where she is compared to the other hunters, she still struggles quite a bit to compete in lane. Once she gets past that Boxing phase, she's golden.
Yeah, good to
so
go.
just helping a little bit more with that minion damage.
Helping those traps keep up with inflation.
Next up, Bacchus, a little bit of a buff on him.
Ooh,
that's
this is a big one.
Bacchus buff.
All right, so let's start with Chug.
Chug heals.
Is a buffing ability, right? But now,
it's
also a healing ability.
Okay.
A self-healing ability, you might say. Anytime you take a drink, you're feeling
flop
good, right? You're
cooldown.
feeling a little bit higher on the drunkometer, and now
It already gives a mitigation, so they just give support a giant mitigation item.
So
he's gonna take no damage. None.
Now that he's able to chug his wine and receive its healing benefits.
Yeah, just get a little health.
So, also, in addition to that, Belly Flop is going down in cooldown from 16 to 14 to now be 14 seconds in all ranks because we want to make sure that people are knowing that leveling your 3 is the way to go because that's got that extra minion damage. And this kind of solidifies like, hey, I want that extra minion damage. I don't really want to, have to worry about making that decision between do I want more flops or do I want better clear. Now you can have better clear and have better flops.
Let's love the flops. Nice.
You're looking spicy for your 10.
Super cool. Next up, also like sustain in the lane just sounds like a catchphrase that I want to use for something. Get that sustain in the lane. All right, so next up we have Bakasura getting a bit of a buff.
Bakasura, I mean, kind of like skill variants almost to like an epitome. Bakasura is kind of one of those characters that you either love or you hate because it's just really hard to play. So just playing around like that, one wants to make sure that he got some fun buffs. So that eat minion, it has that active cooldown reduction component to it. We're just going to make that 2 seconds
slow
flat
increase in the ulti.
Letting him kind of gain that effect a little bit more in the early game when before it was kind of more pushed towards the late game when he already has cooldown reduction. Now you gotta play with that a little bit more early. Regurgitate also that ultimate, it's gonna be increase the slow from that deployable area.
That's nice.
It's got a pretty good size, but when people are still in it, like they just leave still a little bit too quickly. So now it's gonna be they're gonna be a little bit slower for a little bit longer, specifically in the early stages.
Yep.
Awesome. Fenrir, another assassin out here getting some buffs.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this one's going to be really fun because Fenrir is one of those characters where you can build him in all sorts of ways and it just kind of works, right?
Yeah.
So we're giving him a little
speed?
bit more flexibility, even beyond what he already could do by giving Seething Hound.
That's a meme.
5% to be exact.
Increases protections on Brutalize and then gave him attack speed?
That's another bonus that you get when using that one. But also for Brutalize, we want to make sure that he's not just walking into
This is the first change that I've seen
so making him
that I'm like, all right, all the other stuff, I'm in it. This one, let's relax.
Not die when jumping on people.
Yeah, survive.
Let's relax a little bit.
Awesome. Hachimon next on the list, and more buffage.
Yeah, Hachimon is kind of a mirrored buff that we saw with Artemis on her third ability.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Hachimon's Heavenly Banner. Similarly, just a little bit too low damage. That
See, that's fine.
Not as impactful in the lane as we would like it to be.
They really released Fenrir. They sure did.
Also scaling a little bit, 55% scaling. Not that high. It does sure gives you the attack speed benefits, but we want to just bump that up a little bit across the board.
Awesome, awesome. The next on the list, and this is just me being dumb for like 2 seconds, is Hell Buff. But when I looked at it, I said Hebo, but spelled weird. We have a Hell Buff. So
I guess you could say that.
Yeah. So what's happening with Hell?
For Hell, she has always had this protection reduction on her second ability, Dark Stance Hinder, but it was a very low amount. So it would kind of, to the point where you were leveling this ability
to be fair, the anti-heal items are so good now.
After your ultimate. And so what was happening is you were getting to this top end of the protection reduction, but at that point, flat prots don't really matter as much anymore.
True.
So what we wanted to do is give her a little bit more application going into the later stages of the game, and have that also be a % reduction as well. So it's both now. It's you get the flat, you get the %. They're both better at different times. So once you get to that late game, you'll still be feeling like you're shredding people.
Yeah, nice consistent shreddage throughout the game. Love that. So next up, Hercules.
Hercules is an interesting one because it feels like he's always really good or really bad, and he's been
Scary.
not so strong
Yaga
for quite a while now.
Stack
one of those things that he kind of has needed, especially since like the 9.5 times, is just like a little bit more damage.
It's a one-time stack.
So Driving Strike is going to be getting a whole bunch more damage, specifically on the base damage, of course, to incentivize him building on the warrior side. But also the spicy one here is mitigate wounds.
I literally just thought about that.
Going to be gaining a buff effect, similar like how we saw with Fenrir. He's going to be gaining 25% attack speed at all ranks, in addition to the other effects it provides. So
anyway,
now when you pop that,
increase base damage and Driving Strike. Wow.
25% attack speed, bro.
Hercules to do all
and
like,
cooldown,
and then just start smacking you.
And then run
That's
at
a
you.
big hurt
that
buff.
cooldown's going down as well.
Cooldown's going to go down 2 seconds flat, quite a bit.
That's a lot.
You know,
Yeah, that is a lot. Awesome.
Wow.
he has needed it.
Yeah, that is fair. I haven't missed it a lot because the bonk, but you know what? It's fine. It's fine. I'll just adjust. Hunbat's also getting a buff.
Yeah, so Hunbat is in a very interesting place
I
where
think
he feels
Hunbat's
really,
actually
really great
really
when you get to that
good.
team fight stage and are able to use Fear No Evil. But up until that point, he kind of just feels a little bit like an alt bot, and we want to give him a little bit more flexibility in how he uses his offensive tools and his defensive tools, for that matter. So Somersault's getting a little bit more damage, so you are able to land that jump on an enemy. Not only are they dealing or taking more damage, you're also slowing them for a little bit more as well. So you have even more chance to follow up on them with the monkey bounce or the overhead smash, which both do deal a lot of damage. So
dish it out.
the whole combo altogether is feeling a lot better if you're able to land this jump.
As long as you can land the jump. So
That's the question.
It is hard. That is a skill. It's a skill. All right. So King Arthur on the buff list for next up.
Yeah, so King Arthur's got a whole bunch of stuff going up.
A whole bunch of stuff.
There's a couple of reasons why. So King Arthur's, again, when he's good, he's good. When he's bad, he's quite bad.
Yeah, he's
out. Quite bad right now. And also, we've got to keep in mind whether it's the minion tankiness changes, whether it's Glad Shield, subsequent damage reduction, a premier item for him.
Yeah.
He kind of needs a little bit of an extra love. So damage
Arthur out here.
Getting increased damage on his hamstring specifically, on his battle stomp. And Twin Cleave, which is a little bit more of an interesting one, isn't just damage straight up, but it's going to be an increased protection reduction debuff, which can stack up to twice with that Twin Cleave.
Yep.
Nice.
So
yeah.
Damage across the board helps him in lane.
Yeah, just a lot of good changes to help account for some of the item changes and other stuff that we have going on throughout the rest of the year 10. It's been a while since I've said that. I had to work one in. Kuzimbo up next. Love seeing Guardian get a buff.
Yeah, so Kuzimbo is a lot of fun to play in lane.
So fun.
But the biggest problem is when you're not able to get those sumo slams off very consistently, you kind of have to play a little bit farther from range when you get into that later stage of the game.
Yeah.
So being able to more consistently CC people from range is going to be the biggest goal of this change to Nene Kappa. It's basically giving it more slow when you rank it up to 30%, and then decreasing that cooldown. So again, playing around those shell spikes, getting your cooldowns back by getting hit, you've got more Kappas again.
Yeah.
More Kappas. Hooray. So continuing the Guardian trend, Kumbhakarna also getting a buff.
Ooh.
Yeah, so there's some interesting things there.
Pretty
We were looking at his passive, and his passive is it's kind of binary in a way. Like you either know what it does or you don't. And
2 minutes.
Maybe he lives. But
The 3 minutes. That's fast. I don't know if that's a problem, but okay.
Probably not that high.
A little slow.
And while we didn't necessarily want to make that effect stronger, where it's like, hey, he lives 100% of the time.
Yeah.
We just wanted that effect to be more of a choice more often.
Got it.
3 minutes for a passive cooldown like that is
Groggy
it's pretty high.
Strike now
We're
crippled.
reducing that all the way to 2 minutes. Still a pretty considerable amount of time, but now it won't feel like every time you engage you have to worry about it. It's still
That's
gonna be
a
meaningful
gnarly
decision, but
CC.
allows him to really consider when he can use those.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, Groggy Strike will now be applying a cripple in addition to its root effects.
Yep.
Nice.
So now it's a little bit more worthwhile to charge up that big swing.
Yeah, to get it all the way
A little
back.
bit more reward.
Wow.
Nice. Moving on, we have some mage stuff going on with Morgan Le Fay also getting a buff.
Yeah, Morgan Le Fay has been a little bit absent over the past few patches, and we have kind of realized that this has to do a bit with her ability to kind of finish people off.
Consuming power is a big buff.
Great at dealing damage from afar and peeling herself off, but when it comes to actually killing people, she has a bit of a struggle with that. So one way that we're going to be doing that is by increasing the power of, or not the power, sorry, the scaling on Shroud of Wildfire, that initial hit. So once you get that bang off, it's doing a little bit more damage. And then, of course, in Consuming Power, this is going to also be increasing that damage coming from the, I believe it's both the pull in and the swing out.
No, I think
the
it's swing with the mark damage. So the mark damage is going from 5% to 8%.
The pull in and the swing.
If you're able to get a lot of those marks off by using all of Morgan Le Fay's various abilities and various forms of sigil mastery, if you're a master of the sigils, you might say.
You've mastered the sigils.
we don't also want to go like too crazy with that because we understand that sometimes it feels a little bit more incidental. It just felt kind of inconsequential.
Yeah,
at the moment, so.
you wanted to carry the weight, but not be like, oh, if you do everything right, you win. Hooray! Right. So cool. Moving forward, Nike getting a buff.
Yeah, Nike's definitely not been having a good time for a little while.
Nike's day.
So honestly, just a couple of easy buffs there. Valiant Leap, increasing the base damage. It's pretty low for what
Nike ult with that new item.
The base damage, it's going to increase that across
all
the
AoE ult thing.
We went back and forth in its strengths before. Now we're going to just be decreasing its cooldown from 100 to 90. It deserves just the normal ultimate ability cooldown.
Yeah, nice and easy. Allaron up next.
Yeah, so if you remember a year ago, which I know very long time ago for a lot of us, we did an adjustment to critical strikes and how much bonus damage that they deal. And so Olaran was also affected by that because despite him being a magical character, he too has critical strikes. So we decided it's finally time to give that a bit of a push back into the more powerful direction for Olaran. And so now his crits, instead of dealing 1.3x damage, they deal 1.5x damage.
Nice. A little more, just a little sprinkle of damage in there. So Serket also on the up and up. What's up with that?
Yeah, Serket, we've been addressing a lot, and I think, we've talked about this in other patch notes based on how we've shifted her previously. Yeah. This time we want to just
1.4 at all ranks.
Some soft, simple buffs, and then we're going to continue to readdress her. She's always going to be one that's we're going to keep in mind. This might not be the last time you see her. We just want to do the small things, especially in relation to all the other changes that's coming up. We just didn't want to leave her out as well. So Madness duration on Cobra's Kiss is going to be 1.4 seconds flat at all ranks. Allows her to use that and be a little bit more flexible there. And ambush cooldowns being decreased from 18 to 16. Again, a little bit more flexibility there. 18 seconds for that ability is honestly quite high.
It's a long time, So cool. So getting to doing this one's for you, Scotty, getting some buffs.
And it's cool.
Some cool buffs.
These are some awesome buffs for Scotty. So first off, let's talk about Calder because Calder's the real god here, right?
Truly.
I'm just kidding. But for Calder,
he's coming back faster.
Passive, he's going to be regenerating more health more frequently. So how it's going to work is instead of every 5 seconds you get 1 pip of HP, now it's every 4 seconds you're getting 1 pip. So a little bit faster if your dog needs some healing. He's coming back
the real god.
Yeah. Up next, though, we've got Piercing Cold. So this is the one, and so this is going from 14 seconds to 12 seconds. Just a little bit more consistent on the clearing. This is also a very good self-peel tool because it's got a slow on it. So being able to have that tool up more often, especially for a character that is kind of lacking in range and mobility, is going to be really helpful for her. But that's not the spiciest change yet, because we've got one more here.
One more.
So Winter's Grasp, the ultimate ability, is now getting an initial hit. And you might say, oh my god, that's a lot of damage. And while that is correct, it is also coming away from the damage over time. So now instead of having this very long, very, if Calder dies especially, it's not the most consistent damage to get off. It's now coming a little bit up front and still a very significant amount in the damage over time.
The duration.
But now if you actually do get the Calder toss onto the dog yeet on the right person, now they will be taking some extra damage up front as well to make sure that they don't have to sit in it for the full duration of the snowstorm to actually get that damage off.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that is a spicy change. Just got to make sure you land that dog eat, like you said. So
yeah, that's a much better.
So back up next as well on the buff train.
Yeah, just as needs a little bit of love. So we're going to go simple here. Sickening Strike, increasing the base damage on that by 10 at all ranks.
Wow, that's a big slow.
Utility effect for the ultimate, lurking in the water. So we're going to actually be increasing the slow from 25% flat, which, is all right, to a little bit more of a sizable 30% scaling to 40%. So
40%
it's a lot more dangerous actually for the persistent effect of that and not just all about the explosion.
Yeah, awesome. That great for zoning and great for utilizing those late games, especially if you're chasing somebody down or zoning somebody.
Luckily, we got an AoE wing blade,
baby.
Also
the protections there while he's in that ultimate.
So you'll be fine.
You are just smacking him in
Make sure you're sports buying wing blades.
It's a little bit more survivable.
Yeah, he'll handle it a little better. So next up, Vamana. Right.
Another spicy.
Another spicy one.
The spicy ones today. All right, let's talk about Vamana. So Vamana is a character that has a lot of problems when it comes to dealing with certain relics. Cursed on. And so one way that we have decided to kind of get around this counter, of course we're not completely removing a counter, is to remove the healing over time from this ability. You no longer heal from this ability, but you can get some healing in a different way now. While this ability is active, you're getting 30% physical lifesteal while you're big, so this counts for the entire duration.
That's a lot.
And then additionally, we're increasing the shield from 1% of your max health per 2 seconds, or 0.2 seconds, sorry, to 2% every 0.2 seconds. So doubling the shield basically. No health regen, but again, shields can still be countered by your Sunders, by your Cursed Donks. You're just not, getting perma damage increase because you are healing for this amount of time.
Yeah.
Now you can feel a little bit more survivable against those, and you don't just insta-lose to one relic.
And if you want a little bit of that healing back, you have to do something active for it at least.
Yeah, you gotta work for it. You gotta be in the fight.
You still got healing potential, but it's not the same as before. It's a little, it's shifted.
You heal through violence now. So. All right, we have made it to the
Feels
final.
like that's a nerf, not a
and that's Jablanque getting a buff as well.
Yeah, this one honestly is pretty spicy.
Whoa!
While the ultimate effect is active, no, it's not just that blind effect. It's not just the
now that's a buff.
As well, and that will be now gaining attack speed while the effect is active.
This is a lot of attack.
20% scaling all the way to 60%.
That's a lot.
That is now going to be going swinging a lot faster.
Putting points in this ability has never seemed so good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and people were worried that the blind effect just wasn't strong enough, which honestly is pretty strong. Now you have to be terrified of when he's in it too.
Yeah, because he is flinging those bolas. So shoot, I'm still the person that's like ult, stop. Ult, so I just can't forget
that muscle
the old
memory
days.
kind of
effect, it's trained. So, all right, deep breath. That was a lot of stuff we just talked about. We did it. We made it. I'm super excited about it. There's still more to come, obviously, but that was a lot of balance. Yeah, there's a lot of great things to come, but that was a lot of balance. A lot of things are changing. If you want all those numbers, you want to recap, you missed anything or showed up late, check out the patch notes. Everything's going to be there, same as what we've just gone through, but with a lot more numbers if you feel like reading those and doing some math. But next up, we do have community news, but before we get into that, how about a fun little video for y'all? Check it out.
Fellow traveler, stay for a spell, for there are tales
now
to be
the
told.
audio's plenty loud.
Stories of time.
Jeez.
Stories of seasons. These are the stories that bind us all. Forged in the fire of an eternal conflict, Survey will erupt to raise the lands of gods and men. Through the flames, rebirth gives way to change and the rise of monsters. The sunlight pierces the ashen horizon, nurturing the barren lands and welcoming new life. And for the souls that were lost, they will be carried and find their way to what awaits us all. And what awaits us all?
They turned it down on their end a little bit.
Of our deeds in this journey we all share. Our stories connected by the ebb and flow of time, like the seasons. We are renewed. When we meet again, what tales will await us all?
Incredible video. I always love these God cinematics because they're always full of action and that juicy lore that you can put together. So yeah, excited to get into Surtur, our brand new god, to kick off year 10. Familiar to a lot of y'all in the battleground, but we'll get into that in a minute. I am joined now by two more guests, a familiar face and a familiar face. We have Titan Clumsy and Titan Lurmy.
Hello again.
I tried to come back, guys. I almost said Clurmy.
Oh no.
My brain is rotting. There's so many things that have happened that like it's a deflated tire.
Yeah, we've been here for a while.
73 years. I had a birthday. I had a birthday during one of those videos.
Nice.
So but no, let's get into Surtur.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess just at the very top of it all, Why Surtur? You know, why pull him out of that fire giant pit and throw him onto the God selection screen?
I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head right there, right? It is year 10 of Smite. We wanted to do something exciting, something that hits like the nostalgic core, something that Smite players themselves would really enjoy, something that players that don't really know that much about Smite can still see as like an iconic figure. And who else but our own fire giant? In fact, who is Surtur? He is the fire giant.
Yeah.
So he's being elevated from just an NPC boss that's been, you know, as you saw in the cinematic and stuff, he's just been hit over and over the head again and again. And now he's going to be joining the battlefield himself to just, you know, wreak havoc.
Yeah. Well, that's incredibly exciting.
Ready.
We have the card art to look at here as we continue talking. So let's check that out as we get into it.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Gosh.
I mean, a little bit about
Give
Surtur,
me a
right?
big,
He's the
thick
fire giant. He's the lord of the fire realm of Muspelheim.
Yeah.
And what does he do? His purpose is honestly quite singular. His lore is very straightforward. He brings about the end of the universe in the Battle of Ragnarok. So this is him setting the Yggdrasil tree alight and aflame, which, you know, ends the universe, ends the world.
Oh no,
he's
he's hot.
It's a purpose. That is what it's there for.
Yeah.
But, you know, unbeknownst to him, and as the Phoenix usually goes, once things are kind of in flames, new things are risen again. So while he ends the universe, it is reborn, but Surtur's purpose has been fulfilled. He destroys everything.
And, I mean, obviously incredible to look at, but... You know, as we look at this, and we get to see a turnaround here in just a second.
Baby!
I've seen y'all design gods
Nice
from the ground up.
sword.
You know, I've seen y'all work through the process of bringing something from out of Smite into Smite. What was different about this?
Good
you know, this was a character that
definition
existed
on
at
that,
least in some
man.
capacity on the battleground. So
He
how was it
looks
different?
good.
That's a great question because he's existed in several different ways. Whether
Look at
it's
the
in,
details on like
the conquest map and a few
the
different
fire on
iterations,
his
whether he was
body
even
and
in
stuff,
an
like the little
adventure at one
brimstone
point as one of the
stuff.
bosses
That's
there.
cool.
You know, we really wanted to make sure that we brought the depictions that we have shown as Surtur. We brought the lore accuracy as well of, like, you know, his charred flesh, which is a massive component to him, his bright and flaming sword. We wanted to make sure that he evokes those Norse feelings.
What, you don't think the fire
that
giant
you'd
should have a
expect,
belly button?
especially from his fiery realm of Muspelheim. You can see the fire exuding from his horns, from his sword, from his flesh itself.
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure that when you look at him, you saw kind of like the evolved version of the NPC that you kind of have been fighting over and over again, right? He doesn't, even though he may be smaller in stature, although he's still quite big.
The fire giant
he doesn't look
Tess,
any
obviously.
less
Come on,
impressive.
man.
Those were the high
your
level goals we
mythological
really
lore.
wanted to hit, and I think the artistic teams have done such a fantastic job. So the concept art killed it. The 3D modeling really brought it into life, and you can see I love the materials on his like chest and torso area. His beard looks sick. He's got kind of like the Emperor and Lord motif with a little bit of a broken crown going on there.
Yeah.
We really wanted to make sure that he stood out apart from, you know, the other gods.
Yeah, and speaking of standing out, he is rather tall compared to
He
a
is
lot of
rather
them,
tall.
right?
We are getting dizzy.
I mean,
though.
giant
We are getting a little dizzy.
Yeah, he is a Jotun, right? Absolutely.
Less
So that's a little bit of
than,
his
less
lore as well. He is a giant.
Yeah.
Haven't eaten.
So, you know, let's hear a voice on real quick. I just want to hear what this god sounds like.
The horn resounds as the battle for the end of the cosmos begins.
Like you said, the tie
Cool.
into that lore there of it's Ragnarok. You know, it's the end of days.
It's the
and
end of days.
He's bringing it. So, I mean, this is a new god reveal. You know what's happening next. It's time to hop in game and check out
There we go.
live and in action.
Let's
and
do
on
it.
a cool new map. The cinematic reveal.
Nice.
That's a
can.
scary
Nice
face.
stretch.
Ooh.
I mean, he's got to be, you know, fit
Spooky.
to go
Listen,
after sitting still
you
for
look mad.
so long.
I was going to say, you have to be limber to bring on the end of the world. So this is
Yeah.
finished.
So
finished.
we're
he
gonna,
big.
it looks like we're just going right into
big.
it, checking out his abilities like we usually like to do.
Yeah.
Oh, it's time. Here we go.
Wow, that was a
That's
big chip.
so crazy.
Damn. Oh, you just yeeted a little fire minion.
Gosh, so like always, so many things going on here. Especially the meteor. That's a lot to take in. So we'll see that one more time and then we'll get into
Wow,
it.
that's a pretty good travel range too.
We'll break things up now. So
Yeah.
we saw the entire kit as it is. Let's break things piecemeal now.
All right, and yeah, I guess we'll start with the passive. So his passive's called Obsidian Flesh, and what's going on with the passive then?
Right. So Surtur's flesh is made of obsidian, and basically when he loses enough health, okay. Well, I guess things to notice is that he is a warrior, right? He's a physical-based warrior. He has melee basic attacks, although with a little bit increased range. But when he does take enough damage via that passive, you can see a little bit of a obsidian fragment kind of splits off of him.
Yeah.
And Searcher himself can pick that back up to regenerate some of the health that was lost
so
over time,
strong and
as well
so
as
low.
a protections buff.
That's so strong.
Thing to note as well is that enemies can actually step over those fragments to destroy them.
Okay.
So if you're versing a Searcher, just make sure when you see when you're hitting
That's
them
an
and you see
important
them
little
get low,
mini game
you
as
want
well.
to tread over those fragments.
It's
So.
a dancing lane.
It's a dancing lane, which is pretty cool. It's
Yeah.
also his main form of self-sustain and regeneration. So you really want to deny him those if you can, and he really wants to pick those up. It's his own little mini game.
Yeah, and again, always an opportunity for conflict too, because you can try to predict. Oh, they see that, their instinct is to stomp it out. I'm gonna take over and attack that, or on the reverse, he needs this sustain. He's gonna go for that. I have to take advantage of that. So.
And going back a step as well, because we talked about the melee basic attacks. If Surtur, you can see Surtur has actually a 4-hit chain.
Yeah.
And if you look right there, the first hit is a standard, second and third hits are cleaves, and the fourth hit is a heavy hit. The second hit's also kind of a weak cleave.
I like the auto attack chain.
So standard, cleave, large, slow hit.
Awesome.
But yeah, let's move from the passive and the basic attacks to the first ability, Flames of Muspel.
Let's do it.
So Flames of Muspel is singular in purpose, and what it does is it is a basic attack stim. We've seen a few of those before, but it has a couple of unique effects. In fact, it has quite a few interesting things going on. We can't just do things simply, right? No. So Surtur sets his Sword Ablaze, and when he next hits an enemy god, it deals bonus magical damage.
Ooh. He's a warrior.
He is a physical warrior. We talked about that before, but yes, this is a little bit of a transcendence.
A little bit of a magical damage.
Bonus magical damage. There is a physical burn that's active as well, because if you have a fiery sword that's hitting you, it's going to set you aflame a little bit. So let's go back to that in a second. So he deals physical burn damage as well as a bonus magical damage proc. Also, you can see he's the Lord of Muspelheim. He's got to bring his fiery horde with him. That's what he does to break the Bifrost Bridge. So this ability actually spawns a fiery imp that will attack enemies for a short period of time.
And that's a throwback in itself too.
Exactly.
That's quite a few things.
In previous
bonus damage, bleed, plus a little demon bro that also hits you.
We wanted to kind of bring that
Bites
idea
at your
back
ankles.
again. So one of the goals for our version of Surtur as a playable character was to make sure that we harken back a little bit to what he is like as an NPC, but we didn't want to just directly draw all inspiration from that. That's not very exciting.
Yeah, because this is his next stage in Smite. You want that inspiration, that history, that foundation, but this is a new phase for the fire.
Exactly. So one final thing that this ability does, other than the fact that it's unique and does bonus magical damage, is it actually is a stacking mechanism. So if you kill when the debuff is on an enemy, that flame debuff, that damage, if that enemy dies while that flame damage is on them via yourself or from any other sources to make it a little bit easier to stack, you actually gain that bonus magical damage proc increases in damage every single time. So you can keep stacking that up to 200 times, I think is the last number we went with. It is an obscenely large amount, and you have obscenely small fragments of damage you're going to be increasing over time. So this is a long game. You can continue to empower your bonus magical damage proc because it doesn't scale. You can't buy magical items or anything like that. So the more you utilize Flames of Muspel to kill lane minions, kill jungle minions, kill enemy gods, you can empower further uses of Flames of Muspel.
Yeah, and like you said, this works on anything really. So get those last hits, get that extra gold, and most importantly, get those stacks, because you want to be hitting hard with that magic.
Oh, it procs on. Oh, it procs on minion. Never mind. You probably can't stack it. I thought it only procced on God. I was like.
So Surtur is the fire giant.
Yeah, it's
what does he want to do? Well,
okay.
he wants to pick things up and throw them around. So we want to do something a little bit unique here. So as you can see, he just kind of has a two-targeter mechanism. The first time he picks something up, if there is nothing around him, he will just grab a meteor from the earth itself and chuck it forward, stunning the first, stopping and on the first enemy and stunning it.
And stunning.
However, if there is a lane minion around, which we don't actually have spawned right now, he'll actually pick that up and it'll throw through all the different enemies and stopping on the first god hit. Now, if we spawn a fire imp from his one, you can actually pick that up as well as the third option, which works very, very similar to the lane minions, except it stops the first enemy, stuns them, and does an AoE explosion.
You can pick up a lane minion and yeet them.
From the throw and the explosion will not damage the same target, but you can do that through a minion wave.
I love it.
Deal bonus damage there. So 3 things you can pick up: either nothing, which spawns a meteor. A lane minion, an enemy lane minion specifically, and not jungle minions. He's not that great in the jungle, but you can give him a try. And then finally his his fiery imps from the
That's so
AOE.
funny.
Well, maybe from somewhere else too.
Ooh, all right, super cool. Always love being able to just yeet things. So Emberwalk comes up next for ability number 3.
Yeah, so Emberwalk is kind of that like movement speed utility. Surtur expands a fiery ring around him of embers that provides him movement speed. If he hits enemies with it, it also deals damage and slows them, and it expands and contracts. So the expansion and the persistence of the ring deals damage once, the contraction does damage a second time. While that ring is active, if the enemies are within the actual like outer ring component itself, they will take ticking damage as well. But if they're inside the ring, inside kind of that donut shape, they won't take any damage from that persistent tick. They'll still take the expansion and contraction damage, but they're actually not going to be taking the persistent damage. That way, Surtur can kind of keep them in like that sweet spot, which his basic attacks will also be able to reach him because he's got that extra range.
Yeah.
But you kind of want to make sure that like, hey, you're kind of keeping people near you, or you're trying to like, chase them down with that movement speed buff and that movement speed slow that you're going to be hitting them with.
Yeah, great kiting mechanism. You want to keep them in the zone as you're, running after them, or they're chasing after you.
Also, the more enemies you hit with this, the more movement speed Surtur gets up to a small cap too, and that's enemies, not just enemy gods. So the more you're kind of doing this in team fights or in the wave, you're actually gaining more movement speed. And there's one last fun mechanism too, which is if there is a passive fragment out, Emberwalk will actually automatically pick that up. So there we go. So that's there. You can see that.
Okay. That's nice.
That way,
That's convenient.
he's got that active. He's in a team fight. He's getting smacked.
Very
a lot.
helpful. Very
It'll
helpful.
Automatically kind of just pick up.
Super handy. All right, so we
Very
made it
handy.
to the piece du resistant.
Yeah, there's one thing that we haven't seen yet that I'm kind of looking forward to here.
Oh yeah, we got an ult. End of days.
End of
Very
days.
apt.
We talked
for
about
the
it at the
bringer
beginning.
of Ragnarok. Like I want to see this. He turned into a meteor. I
That's
saw it.
That's what happens. So after a short build-up, as we've seen with similar rooted CC immune abilities, Surtur surges into the air, infusing into a large meteor. While he's in the air, Surtur is actually immune to all damage and can choose where he comes crashing down. Kind of similar to like what we've seen with like Yukong's 3. So you can actually kind of move as you're falling. Now, before you actually fall to the ground, several mini meteorites split off, dealing damage, kind of actually focusing enemy gods too. So if there's enemy gods nearby, it will home in on them.
That's pretty cool.
The enemies can try and move out of the way too. Or it'll choose randomized locations if there's no enemy gods and no enemy minions. You can see there was one meteorite each that kind of targeted onto the Zodins. And these meteorites do a little bit of damage and spawn those fiery imps that we also saw on Flames of Muspel. Now yourself, Surtur, you're the large meteor. If you come crashing down and hit an enemy, you'll actually deal extra damage and knock them out. So it's got a little bit of CC component as well.
That is, that is an incredible ability to look at. Like,
Bam.
I feel like every god that comes out has one thing about them or one piece of their kit or one part of their design that you look at and you say, I can't wait for skins to come out for this. I want to see what that changes. And for me,
throwing
that's what it,
minions, that's
will be
already
cool to
fun.
See if they have a different look whenever skins come out in the future.
That's already a
but,
fun
like,
idea.
I want to see what a skin meteor looks like because that is just such an incredible, unique ultimate ability that I'm just excited to see this not only in play, but to also see what kind of beautiful ideas our amazing teams come up with to make that really shine even further in the future.
Yeah, there you go. So that is Surtur the Fire Giant, the first god of Year 10 Season of Monsters. I'm super excited to see
that minion throw is going to be too much fun.
Yeah,
I'm already loving it.
To wrap this up, I just have to ask, y'all have been playtesting this character. He had this awesome kit. What do y'all think? What is his role? Obviously he's a warrior, but like, where has he seen the success? And what are y'all looking forward to seeing in gameplay from this character in the game when he comes out?
So like you said, being a warrior in Conquest, you're going to expect him to see in the solo lane. And because he's pretty interesting where his 2 can be body blocked a little bit. His 3 is probably not the
invisible Baja Blast.
To max at least, but you do want to start with it because it's kind of your only cleaving ability. You also really want to, like Glimmer said earlier, focus on gaining those stacks of Flames of Muspel because it's something that's going to really show which Surtur players are like good versus amazing. You want to be careful that you're also not being selfish around it. Like if you're just doing this in lane nonstop and you're not joining team fights, you're not really helping out the rest of your team.
Yeah.
I wouldn't focus on maxing it.
You ordered your Taco Bell? I think this is the
200
first time
stacks.
I've literally
Congrats,
ever
there's no
eaten
achievement for
Taco
that,
Bell on
that's
stream.
That's just a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Potato.
So he's a little bit of a lane bully once he gets enough levels online, once he deals that magical damage, because that's also pretty important. He is a physical character, so you'd expect to itemize physical defense into him. But that magical damage proc from Flames of Muspel means he's kind of bypassing that. He's like cheekily getting a little bit of extra damage from it too.
It does affect
I dropped a potato.
The late game. He's pretty good at being a backline.
That was fast.
That's the goal.
A peeler, as you might say. He's not a Horus, that's for sure. He's more of a, I'm gonna lock at your squishies, and either I'm dying or they're dying.
Exactly.
That's
Did
incredible.
you drop
I'm looking
the
forward
hot
to seeing,
potato?
especially with, like always, what the community does, and you know when the pros get their hands on this, what they'll do with that as well. Because you know I'm a very casual player, unlike some of my cohorts here. And I'm always excited to see what people who really have, like what Smite is their craft, what they can make with this kind of stuff. So I'm sure playtests have seen a lot of fun in action, and I'm looking forward to seeing that myself. So Surtur will also, like with all the other gods, have skins that they come out with, including Azure Flame Surtur, which is the standard recolor. The
fire.
Oh,
that's so cool.
My favorite hot sauce. I like the mild, and I like the hot.
Because while working on Surtur, I haven't seen all of the different like variations. So like seeing the card art specifically.
Those are the two most acidic of the hot sauces.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I always love these like action card arts because you can see he's sweeping people away.
Look at them go.
The little guys.
That's him using Flames of Muspel on the minion wave, you know, just cleaving them away.
So along with this, we will also have, and we have the card art for this, the Ascended Surtur. So this is part of that year 10 pass that y'all heard me talk about in the
I know
community
this one.
section.
I like this one a lot. He's got like that neon teal green.
Oh, he almost looks
It's
like he's
sick.
from I guess it depends on the depiction, but like Helheim, you know, with like
Sure.
the, like
Yeah,
blue
good
colors.
call out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
So
sick.
look, he's breaking free of the chains. He's leaving the fire giant pit.
You can't hold me as an NPC any longer.
Nope. Select me in the screen and let me get 53 kills. We also have, and I know who's going to be going for these soon, the Masteries for Surtur. So let's get a preview of them here.
You
before
know
you
what's
see
a
them
TG Guardian
in
crunch
progress.
in
So
there.
you're rocking that from day one.
He's angry. Oh, you're gonna be rocking like the third one as well, you know?
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be shiny.
You'll be locking this one from game 3.
Okay, well, I can't get that many worse.
Ah, nice seeing it in game.
Yeah.
I love the way his sword and his beard and his horn changes.
You know
Yeah.
That's one of the nicest golden skins I think we have in the whole game.
The blues are just so deep too. They have such, and it's such a contrast from all of the reds in the original
and the
skin.
magma's like white, like it's white hot. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
He's a blue
that's
boy.
So cool.
Oh, sweet.
He's blue.
We go back to that fiery red, but I mean, the red, gold, and black. It's so
Nice. Those are some of
Okay,
my
here we
favorite of
go.
the black and gold.
Here we go.
It's
Yeah,
on
it's
the
like,
way. You know it's.
you don't want to
creeping
speed up the turnaround, but at the same time, I kind of want to
at how
see what's gonna
baggy
happen.
I mean, this
Sword
one's
is.
always gonna look nice, right?
It's
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's always a beautiful color palette.
there we go.
Oh,
We're
that-
back to the white hot.
that is perfection. I will not be.
Sleeping. you're gonna be playing and
Yeah,
grinding
I'll
for
be
that.
playing all day long. Not only because the entirety of year 10 is coming
Yep.
out, but Surtur is coming
my
along
gosh,
with
that's
it,
so true.
and wow.
And one thing I noticed too is with the first skin, that it was like the gold and the blue, the fire was still red, but for this one, even the fire is that like
nice,
that white
good call
color.
out.
Oh
That's
my
so
god,
cool.
this is
So
so
just
good right
attention
now.
to detail on that. You got to earn the flames. Always just such a good-looking skin.
Yeah, I can't wait to use that. I'm
Yeah.
so excited.
Yeah, you can't wait to use that day,
Day
one. I'll see
one,
the Twitter
exactly.
thread. It'll be
Night
day
one,
one,
hold
12th
on.
hour.
No,
I have
okay.
it. So, oh man. Well, again, incredible. You know, we have talked about
Incredible.
so
Super.
many things here.
Yeah,
It
we
feels like
survived.
this show started in a different year. Like I feel like 2024 is right, but it's just how much we had to talk about. You know, and this has been a huge year. Or it's going to be a huge year. It has been season 9, but now we're in year 10, the big 1-0. And, you know, I'd like to lead off by thanking the community, especially those of y'all who have been around with us since the beginning. Like, y'all have given us the opportunity to continue to grow and start doing these crossovers and expanding
think
our
it's
game and
over.
making crazy changes like this. But I'm going to ask y'all for help, too. PTS, no waiting for Friday. It's going to be right around the corner.
Thank you for supporting the Twitchiest community. If you'd like to see more videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel and always hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Thank you for all your support and have a Twitchin' day, y'all.